Hey there, my amazing time-traveling friends. It's your pal, Chronos, back with another mind-blowing episode of What If? On our beloved channel. Today, we're diving headfirst into part 7 of our thrilling series, What If Deku Became Saitama? Trust me, folks, this one is going to knock your socks off, so grab your favorite snack, cozy up, and let's embark on this exhilarating journey together. Chapter 21. Two Heroes. Izuku and Taku were playing cards on a table in the back of the plane. They would be arriving at Island in about 40 minutes. The flight has been very enjoyable for Izuku. Taku's been out for most of it, but it's been fun. Looking out the window and seeing the Pacific Ocean and the islands below was truly beautiful. After 2 movies, some reading, listening to music and a little nap, he woke to see that Taku had finally woken up. After some talking, the two had been playing cards ever since. They were playing heads-up poker. They had played several hands and were on their final one. They've pretty much gone back and forth taking each other's money. The flight attendant was acting as their dealer, and there was $230 in the pot right now. There was a 4 of diamonds, a 10 of diamonds, a queen of spades as the flop, a 4 of clubs as the turn, then she put down a 7 of diamonds as the river. Both boys looked at the hand they each had, either revealing a poker face. Izuku was confident in his hand as he added $5 more to the pot. Taku seemed to be confident in his as he added 15 to it as well. Getting confident, Taku? You know how I play, bro, go big or go home. He kept a neutral expression before smirking and revealing an ace and king of diamonds. Flush. Taku smirked at his friend confidently while Izuku looked at his hand unsurely. He brought a hand to his head. Ah man, he groaned sadly, dramatically as he revealed his hand before grinning. Full house. He said in a funny voice as he showed a 4 of hearts and a queen of clubs. Taku's eyes went wide seeing this. You whore! He exclaimed, not really mad. Izuku grinned as he collected his money. What can I say? Every hand's a winner and a loser. Look at it like this. By us not playing for serious money, as your friend I'm slowly helping you beat your gambling addiction. He joked. I don't have an addiction. He shot back defensively. That's what they all say, little buddy. He said jokingly. In the meantime, I'll use this to buy us some food with this when we get there. Taku, still holding on to the addiction comment, just stared at him with an annoyed expression. Come on, you know I'm just messing around, Izuku said, smiling. Taku then smirked. Yeah, he said, walking past Izuku and flicking him in the forehead. Ow, Izuku said jokingly, not hurting from that at all. Taku went and sat down on the couch at the front of the plane. He stretched out as he looked out the window as they soared through the blue sky. The flight attendant had collected the cards and put them away. Izuku went and sat on the end of the couch with Taku. Yo Izu? Izuku turned to him. Yeah? Rhetorical question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Ever heard of a scientist named David Shield? Izuku smirked as his hero nerd side came to the surface. That is a rhetorical question. Of course I've heard of him. He's the man who designed all of All Might's hero costumes. He worked with All Might during his time in America after he saved him from a fire. He's one of the top scientists in the world in regards to support items and quirk research, not just helping heroes but improving quality of life for people. He's even a Nobel Quirk Prize winner for his work. He said excitedly. Exactly. Long story short, I met him when I first came to Island with Grandpa a few years back. I learned a lot from him. He and Grandpa have a relationship and he has a daughter who's only a few years older than us. We became friends and we talk on the phone and video chat every now and then. The point is she knows we're coming. She's a cool, smart girl and I think you'd like her. You're kinda talking like this girl is a potential girlfriend or something, Taku. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find her attractive. A beautiful, smart, blonde, blue-eyed, well-built, well-endowed, curvy American girl who's fluent in Japanese sounds like a good fuck. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason I think you'll like her is that she's brilliant in a way similar to you, he said with a smirk. Izuku was slightly confused at his words. Being cryptic like this isn't out of character for Taku. He wasn't in the mood to entertain it for now, so he just rolled with it. He was now eager to meet these two, so we'll be able to meet up with them when we get there. Melissa knows we're coming, so that is the plan, he said, smirking while resting his hands behind his head. Izuku looked out the window. This would definitely be a fun trip, he thought to himself. After some time it was alerted by the captain that the plane was now descending onto island. Izuku looked out the window and could see the city on the water that seemed to come straight out of a sci-fi novel. He grew with excitement seeing the floating island that can travel anywhere in the world. A big smile stretched across his face as they got closer to the ground, eventually sliding along the runway and docking with the private planes. He and Taku thanked the crew for the flight, grabbed their stuff and took off into the island. As they made their way through customs, Taku decided to drop a little pop quiz on Izuku. Yo Aizu, a little trivia. Do you know why this island was invented? His hero nerd switch flipped on immediately. Yep. It was created so the world's greatest minds could study quirks and invent new hero support items. The place is able to move around in order to protect the scientists from villains or any other nefarious people. The security system here is on par with the one at Tartarus prison, which is why basically no one has ever committed a crime here. But it still doesn't compare to yours, right? He asked, smirking at Taku. Taku smirked back, full marks, and do hoy. You're speaking to the grandson of the man who made the Tartarus security system. Hell, when I was 13, Grandpa challenged me to hack into Tartarus and not get caught. It took them a month to catch on to what I was doing, but it was just a scheme by Gramps to convince them to pay him to upgrade it. He answered casually. You Fuges are so extra. Izuku said playfully. Suck it, Midoriya. Taku jokingly shot back. The two exit the airport, and Izuku couldn't contain his excitement as he ran to the edge of the stairs and observed the festivities going on around him. There were attractions and demonstrations, all while a voice spoke over an intercom on all that was happening on the island. It's crazy how many people are here before the expo is open. The pictures of this place don't do it justice. He exclaimed excitedly. In case you didn't know, people are allowed to use their quirks here. You know, as long as you're not hurting anyone. Taku said, finally reaching the stairs. I'm gonna text Melissa we're here. Let's drop off our stuff at the hotel then swing over to see her. Arlight, I'm gonna text Momo we're here too, maybe all of us can get together later. He said as he pulled out his phone and texted his girl. She and her friends were relaxing at their hotel, but she'd let him know when they were going out. Is that All Might? Izuku heard a feminine voice say. Looking in the direction of the voice, he suddenly saw a crowd of people swarm All Might. He was surprised to see the number one hero had come out here. The talk they had yesterday was still fresh in his mind. Izuku just sweat dropped as he looked at the scene, the price of fame. He thought to himself as they descended the stairs. Izuku and Taku exit their hotel after dropping off their bags in the room. The sounds of the festivities were getting Izuku more excited by the moment. Yo Aizu, catch? He said as he tossed the tiny disc at him, which he caught. Looking at what his friend just gave him, a smile spread across his face. A jet board? Taku pressed the button on the one in his hand and a white light flashed as the tiny disc expanded into a larger one. It had a bit of an oval shape with a sharp design. The outline was golden yellow while the center for standing was black with a large button in the center. The bottom was glowing blue with a circular fan design. Putting it on the ground and allowing it to hover in place about 8 inches off the ground. As if I could come to a place like this and not bring my own stuff. He exclaimed before hopping on his jet board and taking off. Izuku hopped on his and chased after him. The two rode across the streets to their destination. The boards have omnidirectional and zero-gravity functions. They grinded on rails, rode on walls, did flips and tricks, all the while avoiding hitting anyone. They made it to a set of stairs close to a building. They got off their boards as this is where they were supposed to be meeting Melissa. Izuku could hear a bouncing spring noise coming from just beyond the stairs. He looked up just as a flash of blonde hair disappeared. After hearing the bounce again, this time the figure of a girl jumping on some kind of super pogo stick came into view. She looked to be a little older than the two of them. She landed and got off of her pogo stick and came towards them with a smile on her face. Konnichiwa. It's been too long, Fujiwara. She exclaimed, smiling as she hugged Taku. Melissa. How's my favorite American girl been these days? Taku asked as he reciprocated the hug. I've been really good lately. How have you been? She asked with a smile. Taku smirked at her. You know me. Always inventing, pushing the bounds, and just enjoying the madness of science. She is a crazy mistress. She said before turning to Izuku. You must be the friend he mentioned? I'm Melissa Shield. It's nice to meet you. She extended a hand. Izuku smiled as he shook her hand. Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you as well, Melissa. So you're the Midoriya I've heard so much about. Fujiwara's mentioned you in our video chats. I'm almost hesitant to ask what he said about me. Izuku smirked, looking at Taku. It wasn't anything bad. It mainly just boils down to you being a good guy. She answered, looking at Taku. Hey, I appreciate that, man. Izuku said as he slung an arm around Taku. Getting Izuku off of him, he tried to change the subject. Oh look, I just remembered, Melissa. Didn't you say you had someone else to meet up with? I did actually, come on you two. She gestured to them to follow her. After a few minutes of walking, a hulking figure came into view. He was tall, blonde, muscular, and was wearing his latest hero costume. To the shock of both boys, it was All Might. Melissa suddenly took off, heading for the blue-clad hero. Uncle Might! She exclaimed as she jumped into All Might's arms. The hero smiled as he held her up. Melissa! You sure have grown since the last time I saw you. Well, I am 17 now, much heavier than the last time you saw me. She smiled. Oh really? All Might said playfully as he easily lifted her up and down. Good to see you were able to escape your adoring public, All Might. Taku perked up. All Might turned in the direction of the voice to see a greenette and graynette boy approaching them. All Might recognized the green-haired boy but not the other one. Friends of your Melissa? Yeah, they are. I just met up with them before I came to meet up with you. She answered. Hey All Might. I'm Takumi Fujiwara. I assume you're here to also say hi to Professor Shield? Taku asked while extending a hand. All Might kept his signature smile. That's right. It's been a while since I've seen my old friend, and I can't turn down an invitation from Melissa. Taku smiled, turning to the girl as brown eyes met blue. I know the feeling. Melissa perked up. Fujiwara is an inventor too, Uncle Might. He's really smart, and I can only imagine some of the things he's built since I last saw him. Taku chuckled while rubbing his head. You give me too much credit, Melissa. My quirk just makes it easy to learn a lot of things really fast. I know, and you're just like Papa in that regard. She complimented. Thanks, your dad sets a pretty high standard. Taku replied, smiling. Izuku, who had just been observing the scene, right now he had to thank the acting lessons he had done with Taku's mom. This entire island sets a high standard, Taku. Hey All Might, I wasn't expecting to see you here. Are you here to see the expo? I am. It's been a while since my last visit, and I'm looking forward to it. He exclaimed, still smiling. Have we met, young man? Izuku's expression was nonchalant, once. But it's not worth remembering. He then smiled. Still, I'm looking forward to it too. It's actually my first time, so I'm really excited about it. Melissa perked up. You'll love it, Midoriya. The scientists outdo themselves every year. I hear that this year will be on a whole other level. It will be. Especially since I'll be showing off some of my inventions. Taku said confidently. Melissa pouted at him. I'm still a little maid, you won't tell me what you're presenting. Taku gave her a sly smirk. Easy, beautiful, you'll find out tomorrow. Remember, patience is a virtue. That's rich coming from you. Both Izuku and Melissa said in unison. Melissa simply shrugged as she turned and they followed her to meet her father. As they walked, they talked amongst themselves all the way until they made it up a building. They walked the halls until they made it to a door where Melissa asked them to wait outside. When the door opened, All Might rushed in. I am here, flowing with emotion at our heartfelt reunion, he exclaimed with joy. Professor Shield's eyes went wide with surprise. Tosh, I mean All Might. Is that really you? He asked, clearly surprised. All Might rushed him, laughing as he pulled him into a hug. I came all this way to see you, Dave. Oh, buddy. Melissa was happy as she watched. So Papa, are you totally surprised? David in his shock regained his composure, completely astounded. We have Melissa to thank for this. Man, how long has it been? All Might asked. David smiled at him. Come on, it's only been a couple of years. No need to make me feel old, you jerk, he said jokingly as they both shared a laugh together before doing fist bump. Izuku and Taku stood in the doorway observing the moment between old friends. It has been a while, huh, Professor? Taku asked with a grin at the older man. David looked past All Might to see a familiar grey-net and green-haired boy who looked on the verge of nerding out. David smiled upon seeing him. Fujiwara, it's good to see you. Taku approached the brown-haired scientist. Likewise, sir. You've been doing well, I hope? I have. I hear you will be showing some of your inventions at the expo this year? I will be. And I've got something that I think will blow even your mind. How's the aerial seaplane we invented together? I hear you patented it. I did. A working model should be on display in one of the exhibits. Sweet! Taku exclaimed. He turned back to Izuku. Yo Aizu, let me introduce you to someone incredible. Professor David Shield. Izuku's fanboy side suddenly came to the surface. I know exactly who he is. A top scientist in the world of research who won a Nobel Quirk Prize. He was All Might's partner in America. He's a genius when it comes to costumes. All Might's Young Age, Bronze Age, Silver Age and Golden Age costumes were all made by him, Izuku exclaimed. I never thought I'd actually meet him until now. Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya, and may I shake your hand, sir? David smiled as he took his hand, of course. It seems I don't have to introduce myself. Izuku lightly chuckled with a bit of embarrassment. Sorry about that, I'm a bit of a fanboy. All Might, who was standing next to them, suddenly coughed. Izuku caught the look in David's eyes and it was one of concern. Letting go of Izuku's hand, Hey Melissa, why don't you show the boys around the island? Sure Papa, that sounds like fun. She eagerly agreed. Izuku looked at All Might, who kept his fist to his mouth. It was clear the professor was trying to get them to leave the room. He saw a faint steam start to emanate from All Might, and whatever was about to happen he knew he couldn't stay to see it. Turning to Melissa, that does sound like fun. You really don't mind, Melissa? No, it's fine. Let's go. She smiled as she left the room with both boys following her. They left the building and made it back on the streets. They walked into an area that favored an amusement park. I still can't get over the fact this place is man-made. It's insane. Izuku said as he walked between Taku and Melissa. There's normal city stuff too. With just about anything you could need. The only downside is that we can't travel. Melissa said. It makes sense. The scientists on this island have to keep their work a secret. Any one of them could be working on something that could change the world, Taku said with his arms behind his head as they walked. They suddenly heard a monstrous roar. They all looked up to see a huge reptilian man wearing a white coat giving them the peace sign as he walked past. Hey, it's the monster hero, Godzilla! Izuku exclaimed as he chucked up his own peace sign at the hero. Several people around them commented on how cool his quirk was. They approached a building that seemed to excite Melissa. Midoriya, you've got to check out this place, she exclaimed while pointing at the building. Taku recognized the place. Oh, you're gonna enjoy this, he said as he nudged his friend. Izuku looked around and could see several heroes signing autographs before walking into the building. The moment he entered he was amazed. I've never seen so many hero items in one place in all my life. Cool, right? When I first came here I spent most of my time here, Taku said as he enjoyed Izuku's amazement. Melissa went on to show them a multi-purpose vehicle that can fly as well as soar underwater. They made some of the coloring ocean blue. I would have been a little mad at your dad if they did it otherwise. Taku smirked, admiring an invention he helped create. She then showed them a suit that allows you to dive 7,000 meters. While Izuku and Taku thought it was cool, but Izuku can already do that. She then showed them a helmet that gives the wearer 360 degrees of vision using 36 sensors. Both thought so much. Hey Melissa, I never asked before, but are you a student at the Eye Academy? Izuku asked. I'm a third year, she answered honestly. The Eye Academy is where everyone who dreams of being a scientist wants to go. You must be a real genius. She shrugged off the praise. Well, I've still got a lot of work to do if I want to achieve my goal. Taku looked at her, a smile on his face. You will, in time. Before you know it, your inventions will be helping heroes and by extent, people, all over. You seem to be enjoying yourself, Izuku. He heard a familiar feminine voice say to him from behind. Turning around he saw Momo giving him a look with Uraraka and Jiro standing next to her. Having nothing to hide and seeing his girl, he raised his hands. Hey my love, I was wondering when I'd bump into you here. Uraraka, Jiro, it's nice to see you too. Uraraka smiled. It's been a while, hasn't it? Jiro kept a neutral expression, looking at Izuku while raising her earphone jacks. I heard everything, Midoriya. Okay, Spitek, next time just say hi. He gestured to Melissa. This is Melissa, she's a friend of Taku's and she was showing us around. Momo kept her expression. Is that so? Yes. It is Yayorozu, Taku said, looking at her. Melissa, who was slightly confused at the tension, asked Izuku what was up. Midoriya, who are these girls? Oh, the tall one is my girlfriend and the other two are her friends. After some time goes by, they all decide to get some tea at a nearby cafe. The girls all sat at a table while the boys sat at a table by themselves. So you all actually did hero work, like in the field? I just helped with evacuations during mine, Jiro said. I actually spent most of it training, but I did learn a bit, Momo said, holding her right cheek. Melissa lit up. That still sounds amazing. You'll be great heroes one day. Momo blushed slightly at her words. Thank you so much. We'll certainly do our best. Taku and Izuku sat at their table as they listened to the girls. They seemed to be hitting it off well. Izuku said, I'm not surprised. Melissa's good company after all. Taku responded, Here's your drink, sir. A charismatic male voice came as his blue drink was placed on the table. Turning to his waiter, Izuku saw that it was a blonde-haired boy around his age with a lightning bolt in his hair, and standing next to him was a familiar purple ball-haired midget. Mineta? He said, looking at the short teen slightly surprised. This saying of his name made the girls turn to Izuku and Taku's table. Looking up, he saw the greenite who called his name. Hey Midoriya. Been a while, huh? He smiled, trying to look cool. Kaminari? Jiro said in acknowledgement of her classmate. Yo. The blonde boy said, saluting his right middle and index fingers at the girls. Are these two your classmates? Melissa asked Momo. They are. Momo smiled as she answered truthfully. Izuku looked at the blonde. I saw you in the sports festival. Kaminari, right? That's me. Always nice to meet a fan. He smiled confidently. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I helped some of your classmates train for the festival. Unfortunately, you and I didn't meet back then. Kaminari's eyes widened upon hearing his name. Wait, you're Midoriya? He asked in shock. That's me. I'm assuming Momo and some of your classmates mentioned me? The electric teen had a sly grin as he slung an arm around Izuku. Dude, you gotta tell me how you scored a solid 10 like Yayorozu. Izuku lightly chuckled. By being her friend first, I guess. You two got jobs on the island. I assume it's to make some cash during the expo? Mineta raised a finger as he smirked. You're part right. With a free trip to the island, we can make some good money on top of being able to check out the expo on our breaks. And the best part is there's a chance to have romantic encounters with some gorgeous beauties. He looked at the girls sitting at the other table one by one when his eyes landed on Melissa. I think I'm in love, he exclaimed in a low voice. He huddled up with Izuku and Kaminari. Midoriya. Who's that blonde bombshell? You already have Yayorozu. Be a pal and introduce us, would ya? He asked, slightly pervy. I just met her today. If you want to hook up, you should ask him, he said, pointing a thumb at Taku, who was just observing the scene. Both boys immediately rushed to Taku. Hey bro, mind introducing us to your hot friend? Kaminari asked with a sly smile. Taku gave a sly smile of his own. Sure, he answered in a high-pitched tone. But you're a little late to the party, boys, he said in a low voice only audible to the four boys, implying he was first in line. Why are you two slacking off? A voice suddenly exclaimed. Everyone turned in the direction of the voice to see Ida speeding towards them. He blitzed behind Kaminari and Mineta, pulling them away from Taku. You two wanted to make money, but you don't want to work for it. This is very unbecoming of future heroes. He scolded them as he chopped his hands like a robot. You came here too, Ida? Uraraka asked. He turned to face the others. I come from a long line of heroes, so it's only natural we receive an invitation. But my family was busy, so it's just me. I was wondering if you'd be here. I was invited for winning the sports festival. Plus my father is a shareholder in several of the sponsorship companies, Momo said. Thanks to both those things, she had enough tickets for all the girls. Jiro added. The others are here too? Ida asked. Yeah, they're checking out the attractions. We'll bump into them eventually, said Uraraka. They all suddenly heard a loud explosion in the distance. The sudden sound put Izuku on alert for a moment, as he didn't sense it beforehand. Was that a bomb? He asked as he looked in the direction of the sound. Melissa perked up with a smile. I'm pretty sure I know what that is. Moments later they were at the villain course attraction. Izuku had run ahead of the others and made it to the seating section overlooking the platform. 33 seconds. He's in 8th place. The hero announcer yelled out. Izuku looked at the screens of the course. The dust cleared to reveal the spiky red hair and rock-hard body of Kirishima. Kirishima? The others had caught up with him, and they saw their classmate on the screens as well. So I'm guessing he goes to U.A as well? Melissa asked Uraraka. Yep, that's one of our classmates alright. Let's welcome our next challenger. The announcer proclaimed. Izuku looked down from the railing and was surprised to see a familiar head of spiky ash blonde hair. Bakugo? Taku huffed in annoyance as he looked down and saw him. Ah, damn it. And here I was hoping I never have to see him again. The villain attack course has been reset. Ready, go. The moment these words were uttered, Bakugo blasted himself forward with an explosion. He propelled himself forward until he reached his targets and began to destroy them one after another, all the while screaming die. Much to Izuku's annoyance. Incredible! He jumps to first place with a time of 15 seconds. Bakugo lands at the start with a confident grin and begins to head towards the exit when Kirishima spoke up. Hey, is that Yaoyorozu? And is that Midoriya? How have you been, man? Kirishima asked excitedly while just seeing the nerd infuriated Bakugo who blasted himself towards the railing. What the hell are you doing here, Deku? He yelled. Why are you yelling at me? I can hear you just fine if you ask like a normal person. Izuku said calmly. Taku's face shifted to an annoyed one. I see the professional asshole hasn't changed a bit. He said with arms crossed. His gaze shifted to the greynet. Oh hell no, why the hell are you here? He yelled again. I'm presenting some of my inventions at the expo. Genius recognizes genius, dum-dum. He said mockingly. As Bakugo began to argue with Taku, Momo leaned over the rails to speak with Kirishima. So Kirishima, you two got asked to the expo as well? Don't ask me how, but my dad was able to hook me up with 2 tickets, so I decided to bring Bakugo with me. You guys gonna do this villain course of what? Izuku registered his words. It does look like fun. I'll give it a shot, he said excitedly. Bakugo upon hearing his words broke away from his arguing with Taku. Don't bother. There's no way a quirkless loser like you will get a better score than I did. Well, I won't know anything until I try, now will I? He answered calmly, which only seemed to infuriate the blonde. Bakugo's quirkless statement didn't go unnoticed by Melissa, whose eyes widened in shock. Just take your pathetic turn, you damn nerd, then you get out of here, he roared in Izuku's face, who was completely unbothered by his aggression. After signing up, Izuku made his way to the starting platform. Melissa had her eyes on him as he prepared for his turn. Fujiwara? Taku turned to her. Yeah? Is it really true that he's quirkless? Taku smirked as he turned from her to look back at Izuku. He is. Don't let what that asshole said bother you. He's not sorry about it at all, and that's just who he is. But keep your eyes on Izuku, he's about to surprise you. Melissa took in his words and faced the course. We've got a challenger coming in at the last minute. What kind of score will he get? Izuku did some light stretching as she spoke. Ready, go. In a flash of speed, Izuku took off, moving as a blur across the course. He punched, kicked and sliced robots in half with chops before finishing the final robot with a flying kick. Unbelievable! With a time of 7 seconds, this young man just climbed to the top of the pack. The announcer exclaimed. Izuku landed back at the starting point. All eyes were on him as he just beat the best time by more than half. Melissa's eyes were wide with shock. He cleared it so fast she could barely register it. Many thoughts were going through her head as Izuku left the stage. Such speed, and that destructive power. It's the same as Uncle Might. But if he's quirkless, how is that possible? Mind blown yet, Melissa? Taku asked her with a sly grin, snapping her out of her thoughts. She looked her friend in the eyes. I'm so confused right now. That's a normal reaction, he said with a smile. Kirishima put a hand behind his head. Man, I can't believe he beat that twice as fast as Bakugo. I can, Momo stated bluntly. The blonde in question was giving Izuku a look that could kill many times over. Izuku leaped at the railing and used his right hand to vault himself over it. All began to congratulate him. That was a fine showing, Midoriya, Ida said with a chop. Uraraka had a bubbly grin. Wow! That was awesome. Thanks. I wasn't expecting something like this when I first came out here. Island is looking to be more fun than I thought. He said with a grin. You were a total blur, man. You were so fast it was like I blinked and it was over. Hey, if you don't mind, when we get home can you train with me again? Kirishima asked. I'd like that as well. Ida added. Sure, I don't mind. He answered with a genuine smile. Momo held his arm, her ample breast squishing against him. I'd expect nothing less, my love. I take it you didn't want to push it too hard? She asked with a smile. The feeling of Momo's boobs was always heavenly. Izuku managed to keep his composure, as he gave her a charming grin. Nah, it was just a little fun. DKU. Bakugo roared as he shoved past everyone to get to Izuku. What the hell are you playing at HUH? He growled. Izuku had a neutral expression. Pretty sure the game was to destroy the robots as fast as you can. And stop growling. What are you, a dog? Bakugo became even angrier as he glared at him. You know what I mean, nerd. You can't just come in here and show me up. Will you shut up already? Taku said, standing next to Melissa, clearly annoyed with the other blonde. Izuku simply rolled his eyes. I was just having some fun. Contrary to how things work in your head, competing with you is the furthest thing from my mind, he said calmly. Bakugo grit his teeth and was about to argue when suddenly they heard a loud noise coming from the course, looking to see that the entire stage was covered in a massive wave of ice. And at 14 seconds this young one takes second place, the announcer said. Looking at the cameras, everyone saw that it was Todoroki. Todoroki as well? Ida said in seeing his classmate. Bakugo was pissed at having been beaten by another person, let alone one of his classmates. He blasts from the stands towards the heterochromatic boy. Icy hot bastard. Todoroki looked to see him coming. Bakugo, he said in acknowledgement. What the hell are you doing here, bastard? My father received an invitation. He was busy, so I'm representing him, he answered calmly. Looking out at the stands, he saw a few familiar faces. I see the others are here. Don't ignore me. Ida ran out as Bakugo seemed to be more aggressive, telling him to stop or he'll tarnish you.A's name. All cameras were on the ash blonde as he screamed with Kirishima, and Ida trying to calm him down. The girls just sighed at the scene while Izuku and Taku just shook their heads. What, an ASS? Taku said. Some things never change after all, Izuku said with a small smile. The day went on with most of the group exploring the island together. The sun had begun to set, so they all decided it was time to start to get ready for the party tonight. Izuku, Taku, Melissa, Momo, Jiro, Uraraka and Ida all returned to the cafe to see a slumped-together Kaminari and Mineta, both clearly exhausted from working. Izuku raised an eyebrow and he smirked at them. Come on, guys. Work couldn't have been that bad, could it? Show us some mercy, Midoriya. Kaminari complained. You don't get it. The struggle is real out here, Mineta exclaimed. Melissa approached the boys. Well, here's a taste of benevolence. She smiled as she handed them 2 tickets to the party tonight. Both boys' eyes went wide. Wait, are those? Kaminari began. Melissa decided to take pity on you guys, Jiro said with a smirk. Tears began to well up in the eyes of both boys. A beautiful angel has gifted us, both exclaimed with joy while hugging each other. Ida faced the group. Well, now that that's been taken care of, I suggest this be the time for all of us to prepare for tonight's party. We'll meet in the lobby at a designated time. I will inform the others and relay this information. With a chop he turned and speeded off. Izuku chuckled lightly upon seeing Ida take off. Is he always at full throttle? Pretty much, Uraraka answered. The group broke off into different directions, heading to their respective hotels when Melissa called out to Izuku. Hey Midoriya, do you have a minute? Izuku looked at Taku, who knew what she wanted to talk about, and he gave him a nod. It's fine, I'm going to rest up and get ready for tonight, see you two later. Izuku and Melissa walked together. They walked and talked until they made it to their destination, the Eye Academy. Izuku takes in his surroundings as they go up an elevator. Exiting it, they head down a hallway before Melissa stops at a door. I take it this is your workshop? That's right, she answered as she opened the door and went in. Sorry about the mess? She entered another room and Izuku looked around at her workspace. It may have been a little messy, but he was impressed by how professional it looked. Looking to a section of the room, he saw that she had a good handful of trophies on a shelf. You're pretty talented. You've got a fair bit of trophies here, thanks. But to be honest, a while ago I wasn't getting good grades, that's why I studied so hard. I want to be a hero no matter what. A hero, huh? You mean like a pro? No. I let that dream go early, I'm quirkless after all. She said casually. Izuku registered her words, and what Taku said on the plane immediately clicked in his head. He wasn't expecting for Melissa to be quirkless just like he was. It's 20% of the global population, so the chances of meeting another quirkless person, let alone one around the same age as him, was rare. Just like meeting Koga the other day was rare. That must have been tough. Not being like everyone else? She came back into the room. I'll admit I was sad at first. When I was 5 and didn't have a quirk while everyone around me did, it was shocking. Even more so when they said I'd never get one. Join the club, he said gently, giving her a warm smile. Melissa gave him a smile. You know what it's like too, don't you? Yeah. I wanted to be a hero the first time I ever watched All Might's debut. Now that I think back on it, my doctor was very blunt about it not happening when he diagnosed me, he said, holding a finger to his chin. Melissa turned to photos on her shelf. It was rough at times. I'm thankful I had my father. Luckily I had a dream very close to my heart, to be a scientist just like him. He didn't have a quirk that would allow him to be a hero, so through science he's able to help people. Supporting Uncle Might and other heroes to fight for peace. Even if it is indirectly. That's how I want to be a hero. Izuku looked at her, and he could see the passion in her eyes. It couldn't help but warm his heart. Now I see what Taku meant when he said we'd get along. We're a bit alike, Melissa. How so? Neither of us have quirks, but in spite of that we strive to our respective high-standard goals. Melissa took in his words. She remembers seeing him in the villain course and wanted to speak to him about it. Midoriya, I was surprised when I found out you were quirkless. What you did in the villain course was incredible. How did you do it? That's no big secret. I merely trained. He answered casually. Melissa was shocked at his answer. What? You're saying you can move that fast and be that strong just by training? Yes. As hard as it may be to believe, the human body is capable of incredible things. Many have forgotten that in a world of quirks. Are you training to be a hero? I can only imagine how hard you must have worked to become so strong. Most of my life being a hero was my only goal. I didn't want or have a plan B because I knew I could do it. I've heard it my whole life, you can't be a hero without a quirk. My peers, teachers and even heroes told me that I should give up and have a realistic goal. I applied to U.A and several other schools who all wouldn't even let me take their entrance exam because I was quirkless. His words made Melissa cringe a bit. That blatant discrimination tore me apart. But thanks to my master's guidance and years of mental training I was able to let it go and move on. I have new goals to strive for, and by achieving them I'll be able to help a lot of people. He said, his smile returning. Maisa could feel the hurt in his words. He's been through a lot, far more than her. Do you resent them for any of it? She asked warmly. I've accepted their ignorance, but a part of me will never fully forgive it. She registered his words and nodded her head. The two went on to talk for a while longer, talking about their lives and past experiences. The two really did have a lot in common. Looking out the window they saw that it was dark outside, so Izuku bolted to get ready for the party. Izuku gets back to the hotel to see Taku heading out to the party. He was wearing a black suit with black loafers, a light gray dress shirt, and cream-colored tie. He told the greenette not to rush and to get himself sharp. Taku makes his way to the party. He arrives and sees Ida wearing a blue suit, Todoroki in a white suit, Mineta and Kaminari wearing their work clothes already there waiting. Fujiwara, I'm glad to see you made it on time, he said with a chop. I like to be on time. It looks like we beat the ladies here. $10 says it'll take them a while to get here. He joked. I'm just looking to see what awesome dresses the girls will wear when they get here, Kaminari said with an excited grin. Knowing Yayorozu the way I do, what she's wearing will definitely be enchanting, Taku said. The boys talked amongst themselves as they waited. Ida was getting frustrated as no one had arrived on time. After a while the girls arrived. It was Momo, Uraraka and Jiro. Momo wore an enchanting light green dress with a gold choker necklace and a hair ornament that made her ponytail stand up. Jiro wore a black jacket over a skirt dress with a purple top and pink skirt with gray leggings and pink shoes. She also had a pink flower ornament in her hair. Uraraka was wearing a white and pink dress skirt with black leggings and dark pink shoes. Jackpot! Kaminari and Mineta yelled out, "You three look incredible. Very beautiful," Taku said, giving his honest opinion with Todoroki nodding in agreement. Momo apologized for the tardiness as Jiro was feeling a bit shy. She approached Taku, having noticed her boyfriend wasn't here. "Fujiwara, where is Izuku?" she asked curiously. "When I was heading out he was just coming in. He was hanging out with Melissa and I guess time got away from him. I told him not to rush and get fresh, but you know him, he'll probably burst in here any minute." Momo smiled knowing he was right. The door opened, and in came Melissa. She was wearing a dress skirt with a sleeveless blue top, light blue skirt with a white flower on her waist. Her hair was styled in a ponytail with a blue ribbon. "Sorry I'm late. I kinda forgot about the time, I was afraid I'd miss you guys." Everyone looked at her. In this place of beauty and walks cutie. "Hello, Melissa," Taka flirted, smirking while gripping his chin. She blushed slightly at Taku's words. "Stop, you're embarrassing me, Fujiwara," she said bashfully. "It's good to see everyone is ready for the party." "Wait, I thought you had more friends joining us?" she asked, looking at the girls. Momo answered, "Unfortunately one of our friends came down with something," Momo said as she closed her eyes and put a hand to her cheek thinking about Hagakure. "We thought about bailing on the party tonight but she told us to go. Our two other friends stayed with her though," Jiro added. "I'm sorry to hear that, I hope she feels better," Melissa said sincerely. "Well, it looks like all we're waiting for is for Izuku to arrive. I'm going to head upstairs now. I'll catch up with you guys later," Taku said before heading for the emergency stairs. Todoroki was surprised. "You're not going to take the elevator? The stairs are always faster than the elevator," he answered before cocking his head back before opening the stairwell. "Save me a dance, Melissa?" The blonde smiled at him. "You bet," she answered honestly. Taku chuckled lightly. "I'm gonna hold you to that." He enters the stairwell and heads upstairs. Taku made his way up the stairs. He got out after heading up a few floors and stepped out to see that he was on the upper floor of the reception hall. Looks like I went too high up," he says casually before walking to the balcony. He looks down to see people below, several heroes, scientists he recognized and many other people dressed in fine clothes. People were eating from the spread of gourmet food prepared and talking amongst each other. He saw All Might standing next to David Shield. They were both talking to people when a man in a suit stepped on a podium and asked All Might to come up and say some words. Taku leaned on the railing as the symbol of peace was basically goaded by the clapping crowd to step up and speak. Champagne glass in hand he stood before the crowd. Taku's eyes narrowed as the screen behind him suddenly went red with emergency lit up across it, and an alarm began to go off. At the hotel, Izuku had finished dressing and he was about to head out when the screen of his TV suddenly showed an emergency alert. "What the? This is the island security system. We have detected a powerful explosive device hidden somewhere on the iExpo grounds. We are going into an emergency lockdown. Your safety is our top priority, so we ask that all residents as well as tourists get to a safe place and wait for further instructions. Anyone on the streets in the next 10 minutes will be in violation of the law and treated as violent criminals." "Well, that's happening," Izuku said skeptically. Back at the tower, Taku looked down as the elevator to the reception hall opened up and saw multiple men wearing masks and carrying guns burst in. There was one of them who was tall, bulky and wearing a white coat with a mask that looked like wrapped metal. He was clearly the leader of these guys. "In case you haven't caught on, the security system is controlled by us now. There are a lot of heroes here, but if you decide to make a scene..." He presses a button and the screens around the room show several camera angles of places around the island with people surrounded by security sentries. "I'll make sure the security sentries treat all the civilians in front of them as dangerous criminals. So, I suggest you play nicely, because everyone on this island is our hostage. Naturally that includes all of you." He put a hand to his ear, clearly touching an earpiece. "Do it." The moment these words were uttered, circular dots formed on the floor before each hero, emitting a blue light, and shooting out binds made of energy that wrap around and restrain all of them, including All Might. All Might was shocked by the sudden restraints but wasn't worried at all as he attempted to tear out of them. The boss fired a shot in the air, stopping All Might from breaking free. "Don't even think about it. If you take so much as a step, I'll kill everyone in this room," he said threateningly as he pointed his gun to the crowd. "Villain!" All Might stated before he was kicked to the ground, bound in restraints. "I suggest you all be good and follow All Might's example," he said to the whole room while waving his gun. Back on the balcony, Taku had slipped out of sight. "Damn it. Of course this happens when I don't have any gadgets on me. Definitely gotta rethink those cybernetic modifications I talked about with Grandpa." But he was like, "I know, Takumi, you're still growing," he thought in a mocking voice. He picked up his phone and saw that the Wi-Fi and the service for the island had gone down. Bastards are really serious about this. However, he thought as he switched and connected to his family's server and was back online, then called Izuku. Hopefully this situation made him suit up. Back at the hotel, Izuku was pondering the alert he just heard that repeated itself several times before stopping. A bomb on the island. In the same place as the party tonight, and now of all times. Something's not right about this. Still, I can't ignore it. Taku and the others are there. He went to the app on his smartwatch and got into his beta suit. He was about to take off over the balcony when suddenly he got a call on his hero phone. Non-surprisingly, it was Taku. "Hey man, what's going on?" Taku in a hiding spot. "Good, I was hoping this would make you want to put on your costume. My phone and your hero phone are the only working cells on this whole island. Listen up, we've got one of those situations here, bro. So the bomb threat is real? Bomb? No, that's probably just a ruse. Villains have taken over the security system. They're basically holding everyone on the island hostage. I'm on the floor overlooking the reception. These guys are loaded with guns and even All Might is in a tight spot. It's a full hostage situation here," he said in a low voice. "Do we know what these guys want?" "Not yet, but they just took away Professor Shield and his assistant. I'll be there in a flash, in tech. The others never came up, so they're probably still downstairs. I'll rally with them, then go from there." "Alright, be safe," one said before hanging up. He looked at the giant tower and narrowed his eyes, unable to shake the feeling of confusion. Why would anyone, how could anyone do this here? He thought to himself. He vibrated and became invisible, then jumped from his balcony. He skywalked to his destination, all while pondering the motive of the villains. He was certain of two things. 1, this was an inside job. And 2, they were after something only Professor Shield can provide. Taku heads down the stairwell back to the entrance. He sees the others as well as blast shields over the windows. The other saw the look on his face when he came out. "We got trouble," he said in a serious tone that put everyone on edge as they looked at him. An invisible one made it to the tower where the party was being held. On the outside he could see that every window was covered with blast shields, with every building looking the same. He could see the security sentries patrolling the area. One landed and looked at the scene around him, thoughts going through his head. To think villains could actually hijack the security system like this. Gotta move fast. He vibrated his body and phased through the shield-covered door. He was surprised as he slowly made it to the other side. Looking at the empty entrance where he would have met up with the others, he looked back at the entrance. That metal's weird to phase through, the hell's that made of? He thought as he turned to the door leading to the stairwell. Now to find the others. In the stairwell, Taku had given everyone the details of what was going down. Momo, Jiro and Taka had gone to see for themselves. Momo got All Might's attention and allowed him to read her lips while Jiro listened to his instructions, confirming everything Taka had said and telling them to find somewhere to hide. They returned to the stairwell and regrouped with the others. "We have All Might's instructions. He's our teacher, so we should leave it to the pros," Ida said. Everyone took in his words, with many of them making their own decisions of what they should do. There was a long pause before Todoroki spoke. "Is it really right to leave things like this?" These words caused everyone to look at him. "We're training to be heroes, aren't we? Plus we're capable of helping. I understand how you feel, Todoroki, but the fact is we're still students. We can't fight these villains without our hero licenses," Yururika said. Momo listened to what her classmate said and she couldn't help but think, what would one do? If Izuku were here, hell, he's probably on the way. He would definitely help All Might without an ounce of hesitation. She thought to herself. I'm not so sure. Everyone turned to her as she spoke. Every one of the pro heroes are stuck in a precarious situation, but we have a chance to do something. I can't speak for the rest of you, but I'm not comfortable leaving it to chance. Ida narrowed his eyes. What are you saying, Yayorozu? We're not certified to handle this situation. He lightly exclaimed. I hear what you're saying, Ida. But I feel that this is a situation in which if we don't, then who will? She said with conviction. That's definitely the mindset of a hero. Came a voice out of nowhere that startled everyone. Both Taku and Momo recognized the voice, but it put the others on edge. They all prepared for a fight. It seemed to come from the bottom of the stairs. Looking down, they could see one making his way up. Hello there, he said calmly as he smiled charmingly when reaching the top and facing the group. One! Mineta cried out. I had a feeling something wasn't right in the emergency broadcast. Seems I was right. When did you get here? We should have heard you coming up the stairs. Todoroki rationed. One smirked. I actually just got here. And it's called silent movement, a difficult to learn but useful technique. Melissa, seeing that everyone was surprised and seemed familiar with this hero, leaned towards Uraraka. Who is he? She whispered. He's a vigilante from back home. The brunette responded. A vigilante? Melissa said, surprised as she observed him. She had heard about all the craziness that had happened in Japan these past few months. From what information she could find, it involved a vigilante clad in green, and she was standing before him apparently. Why are you even here? Ida exclaimed. Well, I thought I was attending a party in this building tonight, when I suddenly get an alert that there was a bomb on the premises. When on my way over here I see blast shields covering every building on the island. I got a little curious. So, it's as bad as I thought. No worries, because I got this, he said with confidence as he gave an assuring smile. There was a silence once these words were uttered. Kaminari looked at him stunned, while Todoroki kept his natural, unreadable expression. One, has anyone told you that that's a terrible catchphrase? Todoroki asked casually. Seriously, dude. Kaminari added. Cut him some slack, you two. I think it's cool. Momo said, hiding that she was actually defending her boyfriend. She admittedly thought it was bad at first, but it had slowly grown on her. One's smile didn't falter as he chuckled lightly. I'd be lying if I didn't say some people think it's lame, but they're outnumbered by the ones who like and find comfort in it. So I'm owning it, he exclaimed confidently. One was suddenly approached by Ida. One, he said before suddenly bowing his head. Thank you for saving my brother and Hosu. I can't put it into words how grateful I am. One took in his words. So you're Ingenium's brother. There's no need for thanks. I was just being a hero. Is he doing well? I heard it looked worse than it was. Ida raised his head and faced the illegal hero. He's in good spirits. Unfortunately, he was paralyzed from the waist down, but doctors are confident that with rehabilitation he will walk again. He can never be a hero again, so he asked me to take up the mantle of Ingenium as his successor. One smiled. That's good to hear. Now, where are we on the situation here? Melissa stepped forward. The villains have taken over the security system. The heroes are restrained by security measures in the reception hall. If we can get control of that, we can free all the heroes and undo the chaos. Where's the control room? He asked the blonde. It's on the 200th floor, she answered. One took in her words and thought out loud. Take back the system and the heroes will take down the villains in an instant. I'm not against the challenge because I'm sure I could do it. But the security system is on par with the one at Tartarus prison, right? I'd rather get that back online before taking down the villains. What happened to I got this? Plus I heard you had good hacking skills. One, Taka said slyly. I do, and I am. But getting into a system equal to Tartarus may be one level outside my current skill set. Again, I can do it, but it would take time. I don't suppose any of you would be more capable? He asked, acting as if that question wasn't directed at Taku. Well, if you're gonna twist my arm, Taka said as he stood up. I can do it, he said confidently. Are you sure? He asked, seeming ignorant. Of course. My grandpa built the Tartarus system and I can get in that in no time at all. This'll be cake. Fine, you're with me. We'll stop these villains and take back the system. One said confidently, clenching his fist. I'm coming with you. Todoroki declared. Me as well. Momo added. The resolve of the others seemed to be strengthened with the two stepping up to join one. I'm coming too, I want to help All Might. Uraraka perked up. Guess I'll come along, looks like it's time to be heroes. Kaminari said slyly. Jamingwei has a point, I'm coming too. Jiro said. Ida grit his teeth, his instincts were telling him to follow his teacher's orders and not get involved. But his classmates were going to do this with or without him. Fine, I'll join you. But I'm pulling you all out at the first sign of danger. Jiro raised an eyebrow. We're facing villains here, danger kinda comes with the territory. All the more reason why we shouldn't get involved. Come on, we got one here, that's as good as having All Might. Mineta exclaimed, clearly frightened by the prospect of facing, was surprised at hearing his words. One looked around at the conviction of everyone around him. These future heroes are ready to step up and save the island, it would be a great experience. Some other time. Hey everyone, as much as I love your enthusiasm, time is a bit of a factor here. Having too many people would only slow things down. I can get to the top in no time, so I can't bring more people than needed, he said with sincerity. Sorry to keep those who want to fight out of the mix. Most of them sighed in acceptance, knowing he was right. Melissa, who had just been observing, clenched her fist and stepped up. I want to come with you. Who are you, miss? He asked, sounding ignorant of who she was. I'm Melissa Shield. I may not be much of a fighter, but I know the building and can help Fujiwara get the system back on. The villains took my father. I want to help in any way I can to rescue him. The look in her eyes said all one needed to know. Fine. We'll need you when the time comes, so stay close to me. We'll save your father, and everyone else. I promise. He smiled as he faced the others. Let's go. All Might laid on the floor bound in restraints. Steam emitted from him as the frustration of this situation built within him. He couldn't possibly break out of these fast enough before one of the gunmen around the room killed someone. They had taken Dave and his assistant away for whatever reason, and this situation was just bad. Even if he could take down the villains, they had control of the security system, effectively threatening every person on the island. He told his students to hide, and his brain was firing on all cylinders with no reliable ideas of how to get out of this. He was the symbol of peace, he was here, he should be able to stop these villains. Glancing upwards, his eyes widened in shock at who he is. One, he thought to himself in disbelief. The vigilante smiled an assuring smile that things would be okay. His mouth formed words before he turned and left. A sense of relief washed over All Might after having read the vigilante's lips. I got this. All Might's signature smile formed on his lips as he continued to maintain his muscle form. I guess I can rest easy a bit. It's only a matter of time before this villainy is undone. 1. Be the hero and save us. I know you can do it. He thought to himself, knowing he would succeed. Using Melissa's knowledge of the building, she along with One, Taku and Momo headed up the emergency stairs. One carried Taku on his back while Momo carried Melissa. Momo had trouble keeping up with One while carrying the blonde, who apologized, but Momo shrugged it off as not a problem. They made it to the 80th floor in no time at all. As One rounded the corner to jump up another flight of stairs, he saw the stairway was blocked off. He let Taku off his back just as Momo and Melissa arrived. The villains put up a barrier? Momo said in surprise after seeing it. It looks that way. Taku said nonchalantly. Do you think they know we're in here? Melissa asked. I doubt it. This just looks like a precaution, in case any heroes they missed made it up to block them off. He looks to the door to exit the stairs, or maybe they want us to leave the stairwell. He thought to himself before turning to Melissa. Melissa, what exactly is on this floor? One asked. The plant factory. The scientists research the effect quirks have on different types of fauna. Taku perked up. Oh yeah, I've been in there. It's basically a big greenhouse surrounded by a research facility with an elevator in the center. I assume for authorized use only? One speculated. That's right. She answered, saddened. So even if we could get to it, we can't use it. Momo said, slightly annoyed. It doesn't matter. I don't think they know we're in here, but let's try to keep the element of surprise as much as we can. Melissa, Fujiwara, hold on to me? He asked as he extended both his hands. Taku knew what he was thinking as he grabbed his right arm with both hands, with Melissa following his lead. One began to vibrate his body, causing them both to feel strange as he walked up the stairs towards the wall blocking the stairs. Taku played surprised while Melissa was actually surprised when one's body phased through the wall with him still holding on to her and Fujiwara. They held on to him and kept walking until they too began to phase through the wall as if they were ghosts. Making it to the other side, they let go of one, and the vibrating feeling stopped. Melissa looked at her hands, in utter disbelief at what had just happened. "One, what exactly is your quirk?" "Not important," he answered casually before phasing back through the wall. "Fujiwara." "Seriously, who is he?" "A hero," he answered casually. A moment later, one came back through the wall with Momo holding his hand. "Let's keep moving." "I'm sorry." "But one, who are you?" Melissa asked. "I'm a hero." "I would have thought that was obvious, Melissa," he said with a smile. "I mean about you being a vigilante. Mineta said you're as good as All Might, and I know about the things happening in Japan recently." "You're the hero in green, right?" "That's me." "Melissa, you seem to be making something out of nothing. Whether he has a license or not, it doesn't change the fact that this guy is indisputably one of the most effective heroes in Japan right now. And between you and me, I take him over All Might." "Melissa, my status may be complicated, but I assure you, I'm just a guy who wants to use his abilities to help people, just like I'm trying to do now. Any questions you have, I'll answer them later, but for now we have to keep going," one said before putting Fujiwara on his back and heading up the stairs with Momo and Melissa following. "Hey Melissa, I'm curious, what exactly are these blast shields made of? I had a slightly harder time phasing through them than most things. They're meant to be reliable, so they're made from a metallic alloy specifically made by the scientists here." "Talk about ingenuity," Taku jokes. They made it to the 130th floor. It was the top of the stairs, so they had to get out. Not wanting to alert the villains or trigger an alarm, one phased everyone through the door leading to some kind of laboratory. "This floor is relatively straight. If we cut across to the other side, we can take the next stair up higher," Melissa stated as they crossed. An alarm suddenly went off and security sentries filled the area. "Looks like they're onto us," one said as he let Taku off his back and took his stance. In a flash of speed, one appeared behind the army of robots who all exploded into a bunch of scrap metal, astounding the blonde-haired girl. They continued on their way and made it to the 138th floor, where they had to pass through the server room. As they were passing, the door at the end of the hall opened up, revealing another army of security sentries. "Looks like we're doing this again," Taku stated. Momo stepped up. "You all go on ahead. Find a different route. This is most likely a ploy to stall for time, and they'll just keep sending them our way. I'll hold them off here, draw their attention and catch up later," she said as she created a katana from her hand. "Momo, are you sure?" Melissa asked, concerned. Momo looked at the blonde and smiled. "Don't worry about me, I'll be fine." One smiled. "Don't worry Melissa, I can see she's got this." "Yayarozu, don't take too long," he said as he took off in the opposite direction. "Okay. Just remember not to damage these servers, it could affect the security system," Melissa told the creation team as she followed One and Fujiwara. "Understood," Momo said as she rushed the robots and began slicing them to pieces one after another. As they left, they headed up a few more floors and exited the stairs to a rooftop with a large building on the other side. All around them there were fans. "Now where are we?" one asked. "The wind power generator. There are surely other robots on the floors waiting for us, but if we get to the top from here we can avoid them." She pointed upward. "There's an emergency entrance right there." Both males looked in the direction of where she pointed and could see the door at the end of the bridge that connected the two buildings. "That's pretty high up," Taku stated. "Not too high for me to reach." "Wait, what?" Melissa asked as one scooped up both teens in his arms and leaped into the air before landing in front of the door. In the control room, the villains are monitoring what's going on in the building. Everyone is still trapped in the reception hall. Two boys seem to be lost, just wandering the halls. They weren't a threat, so they ignored them. Had it not been for them, they may not have noticed the hero and the kids, but they were already so far up and left one to deal with the security sentries, who to their shock was cutting them to pieces like paper. They had called the boss and told him what was up. They still controlled the system, so everything was going according to plan. He decided to leave the reception hall and come up. One villain was sitting at the control panel while another stood over his shoulder. The boss is on his way up. You having any luck finding that hero? The girl in the server room is still cutting down robots, and it looks like they slipped in here from somewhere else. They're almost up here. We have to go deal with them, the villain said sternly. TCH, damn it all. Let's go, the other villain exclaimed as they both left the control room. The three headed up the stairs with one leading the way. He wasn't carrying either of them and they were struggling to keep up with him. They came in on the 195 floor, they made it up 3 floors. As one rounded the corner he saw a flash of metal coming at him. He used his left hand to parry the attack, which was a villain thrusting his bladed right arm at him. You picked the wrong place to try and be a hero, the villain exclaimed threateningly. A hero never shows us when and where they fight. Tell me why you criminals are doing this? Go to hell, the villain roared as he tried to slice him with his left hand. One shifted right, dodging the attack and decking him with a right hook to the jaw, knocking him out. He kept moving and was met with machine gun fire as he rounded the corner to the 200th floor. Swiftly dodging the bullets, he grabbed 2 in midair and flicked them into the barrels of the guns, jamming them and making them explode, breaking several fingers of the 2 villains that held them. Before they could fully register the pain, one crashed into one of them villains, sinking his fist into his stomach and cracking the wall behind him and knocking him out. He then quickly spun and blasted the other with a side kick that knocked him out. They made it to the 200th floor. It was a dark corridor. They moved in silence as they scurried along. Melissa, where is the control room located? One asked. It should be just up ahead, in front of the central elevator, she answered. One spread his senses to find if any more villains were waiting for them. His eyes widened as a particular scent hit his nose. I smell blood, he said suddenly before bolting in the direction of the smell. He entered the storage room and found Professor Shield assistant Sam bleeding on the floor with a bullet wound in his shoulder, and tears streaming down his face. Sir, what happened to you? Where are the villains? He asked as he gently held him up. Melissa and Taku entered the room. Blonde's eyes went wide in recognizing the man on the floor. Sam, she yelled with concern as she and the other teen made it to his side. Sam had guilt written all over his face and seeing Melissa, Mississippi. You're here. He closed his eyes in shame. I'm so sorry. I heard my father was taken with you. Where is he? She asked desperately. Sam spoke through teary eyes. We just wanted to get back what was stolen, he cried out. We both agreed to this. But in my greed for fortune and fame I betrayed the professor, he said saddened. Melissa looked at the man with worry. What did you do? He's saying that this entire incident was an inside job, perpetrated by the 2 of them. One elaborated. Obviously. Taku agreed. How is that obvious? She cried out. Think, Melissa. Villains being able to take over the security system here of all places means this had to be an inside job. Also, in a room full of scientists to act as hostages, they specifically chose Professor Shield and his assistant. This tells me they need something only he can get. The remaining question is, what? Sam's face was full of shame and disappointment, as this hero had them pegged. I wanted to get our research back. We invented a device that could amplify a person's quirk. Everyone was surprised at his words, Taku feeling angry and one taking it in disbelief, and Melissa bringing her hand to her mouth knowing where this was going. Flashback a while prior, David Shield was hitting keys on a control panel trying to override it and find a specific item somewhere in these archives. He smiled as he finally found it. I've unlocked it. Locked 1147. Wonderful, Sam called out as he ran up the stairs to the open locker. He had a big smile on his face as he pulled out a briefcase. Opening it, he revealed a claw-like device and several other pieces. It's all here, Professor. You've done it. Everything's perfect. Finally, David said as he lowered his head and clenched his fists. I've gotten it back. All my research, and they just took my device from me, he said in a low, angry tone. Thank you? I couldn't have done any of this without your help, Sam. It's all gone just like we planned. And it looks like the villains are still holding things down, Sam said from the top of the stairs. You 2 done in here? Asked the boss villain as he came in with an underling. Yes. We've taken back the device. Everything is going smoothly. You've all played your parts wonderfully, David said to the boss. Wolfram smirked in his metal mask. Good to know. Let's go, Sam. He beckoned the assistant. All right. He stuttered as he snatched the briefcase from David and bolted down the stairs. David looked at his longtime assistant in disbelief. Sam, you would betray me? Sam stopped tightly clenching the briefcase. You're the one who betrayed me, Professor. He shot back defensively. I've been your assistant for all these years, and you let them take our research. We could have had fortune and fame, he said through gritted teeth. I deserve to be rewarded, otherwise my career would have been a complete waste of time, he said, sorrowful. You're right. And here's your reward, he said as he pointed his gun at Sam and pulled the trigger, shooting him in the shoulder. Sam drops the briefcase, falls back and clutches his now bloody shoulder, looking at his former accomplice in disbelief and fear. What dash? What are you doing? Wait, this wasn't part of the plan. A fearful Sam asked Wolfram. He looked down on him with a sinister smirk. Strange, because it was always a part of MY plan. He used his quirk to bring the briefcase to his hand and fired another shot at Sam. To his surprise, Professor Shield quickly jumped in front of the bullet, taking it in the back of his right shoulder. Sam looked in disbelief at the man he just betrayed being so willing to take a bullet for him. The villain just sneered. What is this now, trying to be the hero after all this? Whether we were real villains or not, you've dirtied your hands and committed an actual crime here. You're the same as us. You can never go back to being a respected scientist again. David grunted in pain on the floor, the villain's words stinging. Come on, we're going on a trip, he said as he lifted the professor off the ground and left the room. Sam was left on the ground, clutching his arm as his blood poured from his wound. Tears welled in his eyes as the professor disappeared. There was no fixing this. His greed and selfishness allowed villains to take the professor and their work. Dread washed over him as he thought of those long hours they spent on this project, it being taken away, and he was now regretting ever making it. Flashback ends. Please! I don't care what happens to me anymore, just save the professor. Both One and Taku glanced at each other. They both seemed on the same page. I got this, you handle the technical stuff, were the unspoken words between the two. Fucking idiots! Taku exclaimed as he bolted from the room, heading for the control center. One turned to Sam. Try to relax, okay? This may sting a little, he said as he vibrates his hand and reached into his shoulder. Sam grunted from the feeling, and a moment later he removed the bullet. He tossed it to the side, reached into one of his pockets on his utility belt, pulled out his first aid kit, and began treating him. Please, don't waste time on me. You have to save the professor. Don't worry, I will. But you've been shot, so you come first. The villains won't get away, I promise you, so just relax. Because I got this, he said with an assuring smile. Melissa looked at him and registered his words. She couldn't help feel a sense of familiarity. It was a lot like Uncle Mike, but different. She took the hand of Sam as One treated him. It's going to be all right, Sam. The man looked into her blue eyes and tears continued to fall. I'm so sorry, Melissa. In the control room. All right, let's get this baby back on our side, Taku said as he began pressing keys. His eyes narrowed as he worked, and was surprised at how difficult it was to get the system back online. He was wondering what the villains could have done, because even if this is an upgraded version of the Tartarus system, hacking into this shouldn't be hard. His eyes narrowed as he found the cause of the problem. Sons of bitches, he said with venom. Fuckers were never in control of the system. They installed a virus that gave control to someone else that's who knows where. Gotta kill this thing fast, he thought as he rapidly pressed keys. On the roof. Just kill me. Professor Shield painfully grunted as he was thrown into a helicopter. Don't worry. I'll add a few more sins to your list first. Then I'll grant your wish, he said smugly as he got in the helicopter, and they took off. The helicopter took off into the sky. Wolfram pleased at the success of such an easy score. He looked at the briefcase holding the quirk amplifier. He grinned sinisterly at the many things he could do with the device. He was going to make the professor show him how to make them and sell them on black markets across the world. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Still, when he got that call before the operation, he may have been a little shocked, but it all went without a hitch. This was quick and easy, and the best part is all might pose no problem to them at all. Suddenly the sound of multiple, powerful sonic booms were heard, startling everyone. The shocked villains looked up to see a hero clad in green in the air above the chopper. He had a big smile on his face. You didn't really think you'd get away with this, did you, villains? I'll be taking back the professor. Why? Because I got this, he declared confidently. In an instant he kicked off the air, rocketing himself forward. He tore through the chopper and grabbed the professor, leaving a hole in it before it exploded in a fiery blaze. One held the professor in his arms as he landed on the ground, just as the burning chopper crashed on the roof in a burst of flames behind them. He gently laid the older man down. Professor Shield, are you alright? He asked warmly with a smile. David was shocked by his sudden rescue by this hero. He had mentally resigned himself to whatever terrible fate they had in store for him, though when he heard the sonic booms he was sure it was All Might. Hope came back to him as in an instant he was saved. But to his shock his hero wasn't his old friend, it was someone else. He looked at this hero clad in a green suit and black cowl who had a smile and an aura about him he's only ever seen in All Might. He registered his question, I'm fine now. Who are you? The hero's smile continued to shine on one. I spoke with your assistant, it's going to be alright. David lowered his head, a mix of joy and shame written on his face. I just wanted to help my friend, he said solemnly. Papa! He heard Melissa's voice call out. Turning he could see her and Momo heading their way. Melissa, he said as his daughter came and hugged him. One turned to Momo. I'm assuming Fujiwara succeeded? He did. All Might should be on his way up here shortly, she answered. He suddenly heard the sound of bending metal, sensed strong malice and an attack. He turned in time to see a giant pillar of metal flying at him. Heads up, he called out. Cocking back his left fist, he met the attack head-on and threw a punch that destroyed the pillar. David laid next to him as it crumbled away. Looking before him he could see the boss villain surrounded by metal and he was manipulating all of it around him. He was also wearing the quirk amplifier on his head, and his eyes were glowing purple. Damn, this feels great, the villain bellowed with a sinister smile as fire burned behind him. He's wearing the device, Momo exclaimed. One looked at the chaos forming around him, narrowing his eyes behind his cowl. Damn it all. So that's the quirk amplifier they made. I was hoping it would have been destroyed in the explosion. And that's how my optimism bites me in the ass, he thought to himself. Metal cables came up and tried to grab David, with one quickly scooping the man up and getting he and Melissa out of danger. Professor, what the hell did you make? One exclaimed, with the scientist in question looking in horror at what was happening. I had no idea he created something so powerful, Melissa commented at the chaos before her. Wolfram stared him down with a murderous gaze. What's the matter, hero? Aren't you going to try and stop me? One stood firm, ready to face the villain. We don't have to do this. You can take that off and go quietly while you still can? Wolfram sneered. Are you an idiot? David's shield Genuous lives up to its reputation. I can tell my quirk's gotten stronger. I'm never taking this off, he exclaimed as the floor glowed for a moment before all the metal on the roof that surrounded the building began to rise up and join with the giant mass of metal he was creating. The entire building shook and crumbled as the metal was drawn towards the roof. Yayorozu, protect these two, one asked as he got into his stance before rushing towards the villain at high speed. The villain waved his hand and a wall of metal rose before one. He punched it hard, but to his surprise he didn't break all the way through. He's collecting all the metal on the building to fuel his attacks. Gonna have to hit harder here, he thought. Is that all you got? The villain roared as two pillars of metal shot through the wall he punched in an attempt to press him. He dodged the attacks and took to the air with skywalk. Multiple tendrils or metal flew at him, and with skillful aerial maneuvers he was able to dodge all the attacks. 4 tendrils of metal tried to skewer him in the air. Skywalk, flash step. The tendrils crossed each other. Asha's body disappeared in a flash and appeared above his enemy. One cocked back both his fists. Waves of blaze, storm, he called out as his fists ignited as he threw hundreds of punches that bombarded Wolfram with hundreds of large, powerful fireballs. The villain and his metal construct were pummeled and engulfed in flames as fire rained down on him. One kicked off the air and landed some distance away. He watched as flames engulfed the area. There is a crash of metal and the flames are extinguished. One dodges the tendrils and smashes large chunks of metal. then strongly kicks off the air, flying at the villain like a bullet. Still don't know when you're beaten, huh? He skillfully dodges the pillars and in a flash of speed he tears through the villain's metal defenses, ready to nail him with a punch. As he gets close when he's ensnared by metal cables, Wolfram grabs one by the throat. His arms enlarge and his skin glows red. One isn't hurt at all but is surprised by this sudden change. "You've underestimated me," the villain exclaimed as he tightened the hold on the hero's neck. "Another quirk?" "This quirk seems to enhance his muscles," he thought to himself as he looked at the sneering villain. At first he thought that these villains were just a bunch of low-rank thugs who lucked into a big score. But to face a person who had a second quirk was beyond unprecedented. "You know, before all this I got an interesting call from an interesting guy. I asked him why he was so eager to help. Surprisingly, he said if All Might's friend was going to engage in something evil, he'd be willing to help out however he can. He was just bummed he couldn't see it for himself," the villain said smugly, once eyes widened in realization, and oh freaking way. "All for One is behind this," he shockingly exclaimed. The side of the building broke apart as the wind roared and a hulking figure with a bright smile soared above the roof. They both turned in the direction to see the symbol of peace had arrived. "You've caused a lot of trouble with your villainy. But it's all over now." "Why?" "Because I am here," All Might declared before rushing through the air at the villain and crossing his arms. Carolina. Smash! The tower exploded with wind pressure when he hit the villain. In that same moment he freed One from his restaurants and got some distance. "Are you alright, One?" "I'm perfectly fine. It's about time you showed up. Sorry about that. All the villains have been taken care of. I spoke to Melissa and got the basic story." He looked at the villain in a construct of metal. "Dave, what in the world have you made?" he said in disbelief. "I said the same thing. I'll tell you the whole thing later, but I just found out All for One is pulling their strings," he said seriously. "What?" All Might turned to him in shock. "Move!" One suddenly ordered as giant pillars of metal came flying at both of them. They both dodged, leaping across the roof as multiple pillars came at them. All Might rushed forward and was met with a pillar. He threw a punch to smash it but couldn't break it, and was knocked upwards. "All Might!" One cried out as multiple chunks of metal came together, crushing All Might in a giant clutter of metal. Wolfram sneered. "I heard from Sam, All Might doesn't have the same unstoppable power he once had. I think I just figured out how to raise the price on this thing. By killing the #1 hero. Farewell, symbol of peace," he roared as multiple skewers came from the ground and pierced through the cluster. "No," David said in a low voice as he looked on in horror. "All Might!" he cried out. "Uncle Might and oh!" Melissa cried. In a flash of speed One was in front of the cluster, and with one powerful punch smashed it to pieces. Wind pressure exploded as metal debris flew in all directions, a large chunk landing on Wolfram. All Might was freed and surprisingly still in one piece. Steam was emitting from his body and he was coughing up blood. They landed on the ground. All Might was crouched over and One caught a chunk of metal that would have fallen on them before tossing it aside. "All Might, are you okay?" he asked with concern. Though bleeding from the mouth and head, his power declining, he looked up at the vigilante. "Thanks, you saved me." One smiled. "It's a hero's duty to save those in need. No matter the cost, right?" All Might lightly chuckled. "You have a good point there." He smiled as he extended a hand. "I'm in quite a bind without you. Will you lend me your strength, One?" The green-clad hero took his hand, of course. All Might stood. They both readied themselves to end this. "Let's go." "Yes, sir." They both bolted towards the villain, who rose up again. "You'll never beat me. You're insignificant pests who don't know when to lay down and be crushed," he roared as he launched metal at the two heroes. They both became blurs as they broke off from each other. All Might tore through several pillars before reaching a wall and smashing through it. One zigzagged before leaping into a flying kick and smashing through several walls of metal. All Might dodges several pillars before running along one with One reuniting with him. They got close to the villain, who was gathering metal and forming a giant cube above him. "I'll bring down this entire tower," he declared. The two heroes speed up, jumping off the pillar and launching themselves off a metal chunk towards the villain, One cocking back his right fist and All Might his left. "Overcoming the crisis before you. Never giving up." and saving people no matter what. That's what makes someone a hero, they both thought as they soared forward. Wolfram threw the cube double. Detroit. Smash. They both called out as they punched the cube. It began to crack and spread until it shattered as they tore through it. Wolfram looked in horror as the two heroes got closer and closer. He wraps himself in metal as their attack connects with him. He roars as he's engulfed in an explosion of power. The wind pressure roars as everything the villain's done starts to crumble away. David looked past the dust at everything breaking around him. His eyes widened as he looked up and saw young All Might. Light was shining over him, and he was wearing his young age costume. The look in his eyes didn't change as the form of All Might shifted to one and the same light. Realization washed over him as a few tears ran down his cheek. Dave. Looking to his right, he could see All Might. I came to save you, old friend. Looks like I wasn't needed, he said as steam emitted from him. Toshi, I'm so sorry, he said sincerely. I spoke to Melissa, it's going to be alright. One stood on top of a pile of scraps. Wolfram and his underlings were knocked out, and the device was destroyed. The professor and All Might looked up at the back of the green-clad hero. Toshi, do you know who that is? David asked as he looked at the back of one. All Might smiled. He's a hero from Japan. A hero. He thought to himself. I did all this. I was so afraid you'd lose your light I never even considered someone else could shine as brightly as you do. He is incredible. I'll admit I don't know much about him. But I can say for certain that in him shines the greatest potential I've seen in anyone who's desired to be a hero. I can see it too, Toshi. Hope. And a light just like yours. David said as one turned around, looked down and smiled at the two men. One. Momo called out. He turned to his girlfriend who was followed by Melissa. You did it. Momo said with a smile. No. We did it. I'm glad everything turned out alright. You're incredible, you know that. Melissa said with a few tears as she looked down at her father. He's okay too. Thank you so much. One put a hand on her head. No need for thanks, Melissa. It's just another day in the life of a hero, he said with a smile. Melissa registered his words and nodded. I'll see you around, okay? He said as he walked past the girls to the edge of the roof. After the incident, Professor Shield and his assistant admitted to their involvement in the incident. Takumi Fujiwara was able to get the system back online. The villains were arrested and the expo, though unconventional given the circumstances of the previous night, was still able to proceed as planned. The unknown hero who stopped the villains and saved the island was another story. Who exactly was one? There was no record of any hero by that name in any country's hero registry. It came to light that he was a vigilante from Japan. The story was all over the news and the media and security tried to find him somewhere on the island. But the only video footage of him was when he entered the tower, his time in it, and that's it. He showed up, saved the island and disappeared. Izuku yawned as he stood on the steps of the airport overlooking the island. He had only been here 3 days, and so much had happened. Everyone got together for a party at a park after seeing the expo together. Turns out almost all of Class 1A was on the island for the festivities. He played ignorant to the crisis in the tower, wishing he could have been there. Everyone made fun of Bakugo and Kirishima for getting lost, and not knowing there was a villain attack until it was over. Even as the building was breaking apart, they were looking for the reception hall. Taku's been heralded as a hero for getting the system back on. He blew the minds of people at the expo and was able to sell a few items. He and Momo were able to spend some time together. The PDA was in full force. His thoughts shifted to Melissa. Things couldn't possibly be the same after this. She would have to leave the island. Her father's been shunned and was definitely going to jail for this. All these thoughts came to a head as he recalled the true mastermind of all this. All Might was in utter shock when he told him AFO was pulling these villains' strings, just so he could aid in S.H.I.E.L.D. doing something villainous. He expected that AFO had connections across the world, but for him to have a hand in this was still shocking. You're still on vacation here. Try not to rack your brain too much, the voice of Taku said coming from behind him. Izuku turned to his smiling friend. Sorry, been a lot for a 3-day trip, you know. Taku kept a smile as he closed his eyes and approached. True. But we've learned and done more than we otherwise would have had we not come. How's Melissa doing? Izuku asked. Not great, obviously. She's probably with her dad at the hospital. The professor's going to be tried after he recovers. I tried to get Melissa to come with us. My folks will gladly take her in, but I have to leave it to All Might," he said with his arms crossed. "She'll be fine. We're her friends, aren't we?" Izuku turned to look at the island one final time. He turned back to Taku, walking past him. "Let's head home. If I'm not back today, Eri will miss me too much," he said with a small smile. "True enough." Taku began to walk with him. "Oh yeah, doesn't your dad head back to the States soon? Pretty sure he leaves tomorrow. But he'll be back soon, so it won't be long," he replied. The two boarded their private jet, and after a while the plane was in the air. Taku relaxed while looking at his phone. Momo and the girls left just before they did. As he looked out the window, he looked at the amazing, scientific floating island until it was far from view. Chapter 22 Connections. It was lunchtime at the Midoriya house. It was the last full day before Hisashi had to go back to America for a while, and he was truly enjoying his time. He and Eri had done a lot of bonding during his vacation. She's fully opened up to him, and he was happy about that. It had been a peaceful 3 days since Izuku left, and they were expecting him back sometime today. Eri was feeling a little bummed she couldn't go with him, so they decided to take a family trip to the zoo. There's an educational kids show that Eri likes to watch that features animals, so they figured it would be good for her to see them in real life. It was a fun trip and they had a good time seeing all the animals. There was an incident where a tiger loudly roared against the glass, causing a frightened Eri to run into Hisashi's arms. It was a cute moment between the two. The three sat down at the table, and after giving thanks for the food they began to eat. Inko took a couple of bites of her rice before she turned to Eri, whose eyes were glued on the TV instead of eating. This has been a recurring problem over the past week or so. They would sit down to eat, and Eri would sit in a chair where she could clearly see the TV. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that she would zone out and completely forget about eating. Whether it be a kids show, a sports game, or even the news, Eri would zone out and watch whatever was on as if she were in a trance. However, there was a solution for moments like this, and it was Hisashi. He would sit next to her, and when she zoned out like this, he always smiles when he sees it. He would gently poke her squishy cheeks, and it would bring her back to reality. Hisashi took a bite of his pork croquettes, and as if on cue, Eri was holding her chopsticks while zoned in on the TV. A smile spread across his face as he gently poked his right index finger into her left cheek. Eri lightly jumped, coming back to reality before turning to her food. "Eri, I'm turning the TV off," Inko said sternly. Eri's eyes widened. "No, don't," she cutely pleaded. "Eat your food then." Eri lowly whimpered. Inko turned to her husband. "Hisashi, why don't you say something to her?" Hisashi had a nonchalant smile. Well, I would. But I'd hate to lose a reason to poke Eri's cheeks." They heard the front door open and someone enter. "I'm back, family," Izuku stated as he entered. Eri's face lit up as she bolted from the table. "Eyes and E," she happily exclaimed as she jumped into the boy's arms. "Eri," Izuku happily responded as he spun her like a princess before holding her up. "Did anything happen while I was gone?" he asked as he walked into the living room. "Yeah. We went to the zoo. We saw pandas and elephants and giraffes," Eri continued to explain excitedly with the parents smiling from the kitchen. "You did?" Izuku smiled, happy to hear she enjoyed herself. Hisashi perked up. "Hey, Eri, remember the tiger?" Eri had a look of discontent, something Izuku was curious about. "What tiger?" A tiger was a little fiery, and its roar scared a couple kids, including Eri. His father explained. "Oh, okay. Don't worry about it, Eri. I'm sure the tiger was just in a bad mood." He put her down and walked into the kitchen. Inko got up to give him a hug. "We're glad you're back, Izuku. How was your trip?" Izuku rubbed his head. "It was fun, but it's kinda all over the news. I assumed you already knew." "We saw. The whole world's been talking about it." "Was it as bad as they say?" Hisashi asked his son. "They don't know the half of it. It all worked out in the end, but it could have been much, much worse." He clapped his hands together. "But enough about that. I just had a long flight and I smell pork croquettes," he happily exclaimed as he went to make himself a plate. Both parents laughed to themselves. proud of the man their son is becoming while also thankful of how some things never change. Rising Sky Dojo. Shota Aizawa stood outside the gate. He looked up at the sign above the large double doors. Well, I guess this is the place Yayorozu mentioned, he said aloud as he pushed the door open and entered. He looked around at the vast courtyard. He saw a 2-floor traditional Japanese house. Behind that was another building akin to a dorm. There was another building on the right side that looked like a dojo to him, at least from the outside. And there was another building on the far end of the property. A man came out of the house and stood on the porch. He seemed to be getting some fresh air. He was wearing a white long-sleeved shirt, black pants and black taichi slippers. He had long hair with a part in a small ponytail and bushy eyebrows. He turned to see him approaching and came to meet him. "Hello sir, can I help you with something?" His purple eyes were welcoming as he asked his question with a smile. The hero bowed his head. "Hello, my name is Shota Aizawa and I was told this is where I could find Michiko Tabihara." Keizo nodded. "I'm Keizo Tabihara. Michiko is my sister. May I ask what this is regarding? Because if this is about a date, I have an obligation to give you a fair warning to run while you still can." He joked with a smile. Aizawa was slightly embarrassed. "No, it's nothing like that. I'm a teacher at U.A, and I have a student who said she was a student of hers." "You said you're a teacher at UA. I assume you're a hero. If you don't mind telling me, what is your hero name and quirk?" "I'm the Erasure Hero, Eraserhead, and my quirk is Erasure. I can erase someone's quirk by looking at them, but the effect stops when I blink." "I see, an impressive power," the master said as he thought to himself. Keizo is a very sharp person, and his intuition is unparalleled. He could tell this was about Momo's physical abilities despite them being unrelated to her quirk. He didn't mind talking to Aizawa, but he was certain his sister wouldn't. After all, she did need to be restrained from killing the entire Udata faculty for what they did to Izuku. Honestly, it's a disrespect even he hasn't completely forgiven. Michiko was training with Rumi and Ryuko in the woods out back. They should be wrapping it up soon. Still, there was no harm in speaking to the man who had made the trip to their lovely dojo. "Mr. Aizawa, would the student in question be Momo Yayorozu? This guy is sharp." Aizawa thought as he answered, "Yes sir, she is. I figured as much. My sister is her master, but she's training in the back with 2 of her other disciples, so she's a bit busy for the time being. I however don't have a problem answering any questions you may have," he said honestly with a smile. "Okay," Aizawa said as he took a couple steps and looked around the area. "What kind of martial arts do you teach here?" "We teach various martial arts here. My sister and I have mastered several from all over the world, but we mainly teach various styles of hand-to-hand combat and self-defense while also including several weapon-based martial arts." "So do all of the students who train here gain superhuman prowess, or is it only a few?" he asked, testing a hunch. Keizo could tell this wasn't the question he really wanted to ask. Someone who comes here with a desire just to gain power will not be trained. However, we push our students to be the best version of themselves both physically, mentally and spiritually. There's more to martial arts than just fighting, so naturally the students who adopt these things and push themselves the most benefit more than others. "What do you really want to know, Mr. Aizawa?" His words though calm, his gaze became serious for a moment. Nothing gets past this guy, does it? Aizawa thought to himself. I suppose my real question is, how is it possible? Quirks are one thing, but how is it physically possible for someone to move at the speed of sound and have super strength just from training? He asks, seriously wanting an answer to this question that's been on his mind since he met his student. You seem desperate for an answer. Why does this matter so much to you? Keizo asked with a soul-piercing look. Aizawa sighed. I apologize if that's how I seem, he said as he chose his next words wisely. Beating around the bush was pointless with this guy, so he figured just ask the questions he wanted to. Seeing the amazing physical feats Yayorozu has shown since starting school and the constant headache that is one, he's had a theory in his head for a while now. One that by all accounts should be impossible. I'm a pro hero, been one for a long time, and I've thought I've seen it all. But I've been dealing with an individual that seems to defy all logic, and in a superhuman society that's saying a lot. My student is just the same, so my main objective for coming here is to find if it really is true. He answered honestly. Keizo took in his words. He had frustration in his voice. Izuku has told him about many of his altercations with heroes. One that he clashes frequently with is Eraserhead. That same hero was now in front of him, and asking questions about the limits of humanity. Keizo could tell from the moment he saw the hero that he was in great physical shape, at least by normal standards. But if he can erase people's quirks, obviously it doesn't work on Izuku aka-1, who is clearly the person he was talking about. Keizo thought about what was said before answering. To answer your question, yes. It's possible to gain superhuman prowess just from training. How? Aizawa asked in disbelief. No disrespect, sir, but martial arts is just martial arts, isn't it? Keizo crossed his arms, closed his eyes and smirked. I'm not surprised you're having a hard time understanding, but it's no big secret. However, in this world built up on quirks, it's easy to forget there was a time before. And human beings have gained incredible power long since before they were born with it, he answered. So you're saying it's something anyone can achieve? I won't say anyone. But there's power you're born with and power you earn. Earning power requires individuals to push themselves and go to extremes of training that most people just won't. The hero took in the man's words. I feel like I've heard something similar before, but I can't recall where. The hero thought. He was surprised and amazed at how casual his answer was. Simply training your body can lead to incredible things, and now he had confirmation of it. It still didn't make sense, and even in hero training he used his quirk on Yayorozu, but it did nothing to affect her speed and strength. But more importantly, this made him think about one. He's used his quirk on the vigilante enough times to know that it has no effect on him whatsoever. He can tell if he's erasing a quirk, or if it's a mutation type, and all the times he's encountered one he's never once felt a quirk. Could one truly be quirkless? It doesn't make a damn bit of sense. Even with superhuman prowess coupled with master martial arts skill, that doesn't explain everything else he can do. The flying, the phasing through walls, the fire, the invisibility, tornadoes, shockwaves, and the cloning. That has to be a quirk, or even several, even if it's a mutation type. But he would feel that, and he never has. I see. He answered. I have a question for you, Mr. Aizawa. Did you come here because you want to gain that strength for yourself, or something else? Keizo asked the hero. He suddenly heard a loud bang in the distance. Turning around, he could see a hulking figure with wings rise into the air, seemingly being knocked from the woods behind the property. He could tell instantly who it was. Aizawa looked up in surprise. What in the world is that? A reason for you to step back a little, Keizo said casually as he took a few steps and stretched his hands out, ready to catch the falling figure. As it fell towards the master's position, the huckling figure began to shrink until it revealed the form of a short-haired blonde woman in black sweatpants and a backless top that landed perfectly in Keizo's arms. I see that the training's going well, Haruyuko, he said with a smile. The dragon lady groaned in his arms. She was covered in bruises from head to toe. At the risk of sounding old, this used to be a lot easier, she said as she nursed her stomach as the pain was still fresh from Michiko kicking her just now. Keizo's smile didn't fade. It's cute that you think that, he said as he held her up with one arm and used the other to flick a bruise on her cheek, making her flinch from the sting. Kinda wishing I had trained with you instead, she said looking at the master. Well, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. Ryuko looked around Keizo and could see Eraserhead in civilian clothes looking unsure. Eraserhead? She said, clearly surprised. Hello, Ryukyu, he answered, also shocked to see her here. Keizo allowed her to stand up and the two heroes looked at each other. What are you doing here? She asked. I had questions and I was told this is where I could get them. Why are you here? She rubbed her left shoulder that was hurting. I'm training with my old masters, she answered honestly. You old masters? Aizawa said, surprised. Keizo put a hand on the blonde woman's head. That's right. Ryuko here was a student of ours back in the day. She was with us for most of high school. Definitely one of our shining stars around here. Ryuko blushed a little at the praise. I didn't know you trained heroes, Aizawa said. Well, I didn't think it was relevant. Your questions didn't pertain to any of that. We've had several people come through here that would take the skills they acquired and use them for hero work. Speaking of, he turned back as he sensed two presences bolting towards them. He saw Michiko and Rumi rushing towards them. Both were blurs to the Erasure hero as they suddenly appeared before the group. The women stopped in front of the trio. Ha! I told you! She never hit the ground. Keizo must have caught her. Rumi deduced, smirking as she looked at the beaten-up Ryuko. Yeah, Rumi, you have good hearing, who would have thought? Michiko said sarcastically before looking past her disciple and brother to see a tall man with long, scruffy black hair and a drowsy expression. I didn't know we had a guest, she said with a smile. Kizio gestured to the man. This is Aizawa. He's a pro hero and a teacher at U.A, and he had some questions about human limitations. Rumi was surprised to see the other hero. There was only one reason for him to be here, but she doubted it. Wow! I'm impressed. Erase her head. Normally you'd never go looking for tips on how not to catch a bee down. She mocked jokingly. Hello, Mirko, he said dryly. I heard you were staying in the city. It seems this is where, he said dryly. Rumi shrugged with her eyes closed and smirking. Dry as ever, I see. It's not like I was hiding or anything. I had a simple problem and came back to my old teacher for a simple solution. So you were trained here too? And did you ever solve that problem? Rumi waved an uninterested hand. I don't have to answer that. What is this, an interrogation? Michiko perked up before giving Aizawa a piercing look that was more intimidating than Keizo's previously. You're a teacher at U.A, correct? Yes, ma'am, I am. Well, full disclosure, I don't like your institution. Her tone, though casual, her words had venom in them. Aizawa was sweating. His hair began to stand on end and he suddenly got chills. The woman before him was by all means beautiful, but every fiber in his being was telling him she was very dangerous, and he should choose his next words very carefully. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there a particular reason? You've insulted me and my teachings, and you should consider yourselves lucky I was restrained from seeking retribution, she said calmly as her purple eyes pierced his soul. Aizawa was finding it more difficult by the second to hide how afraid he was. He was forgetting to breathe and his chills wouldn't go away, and the feeling this woman would kill him if he said the wrong thing was consuming his every thought. Keizo looked at his sister and the other man who was trying to keep his composure. Michiko was releasing her power aura, just enough to scare him instead of knocking him out, and it was clearly working. The master closed his eyes and sighed. Relax, sister, he said calmly. He only came here because he saw the effectiveness of our training in your disciple, who happens to be one of his students. Purple eyes met purple as Michiko looked at her brother for a moment before stopping her technique. She looked back at the man. Aizawa's body visibly shifted as he began to take deep breaths. This is about Momo? She asked with a raised eyebrow. What the hell was that? I forgot how to breathe and it was like if that didn't kill me she would have. He looked between the two masters. Who are these people? He thought to himself as the pressure he'd been feeling suddenly faded, and he was getting back to normal, and in control of his breathing. He had goosebumps as he took a breath and looked at the woman, still scared to meet her gaze. Yes, ma'am. I'm Momo Yayoro's homeroom teacher. I've been impressed by her physical abilities and she told me she trained with you, so I came here to speak with you. Michiko narrowed her eyes. So let me guess, you saw the girl's skills that have zero to do with her quirk and you want me to help you train your students who have either terrible to no hand-to-hand skills at all? She asked, clearly annoyed. His body language said all she needed to know. She turned to her students. We're done for the day, girls. Ryuko, kiss your own bumps and bruises. Rumi. She looked up and down at her disciple. I guess go take a bath or something. Both of you enjoy the rest of your day off. She turned back to Aizawa. And you, get off my property, she said sternly before walking towards the house. Rumi didn't care at all for the intense situation Aizawa was in. Izuku had told her why he was a vigilante. It truly made her empathize with the boy and understand why he so willingly walks his path with no trust for heroes. She just looked at the man in question who literally had no words. She smirked, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It's wise not to piss off certain people. Erase her head. Her hair whipped behind her as she turned and walked towards the dorm. Ryuko gave him an empathetic look before apologizing for her master and following Rumi to the dorm. Keizo sighed. Sorry about that. My sister carries a lot of pride for what we do here, Keizo said warmly as the two walked towards the front door. It's fine. Still, that was intense, Aizawa said as they walked. As I said, she has a lot of pride in what we do, and when someone disrespects that, especially to the extent you did, there's no coming back from it. Keizo said. Aizawa was shocked. His interaction with Keizo had been so peaceful, yet he was met with hostility immediately from the woman he came here to see. She has beef with you. How exactly was she going to make them pay for whatever they did? He wished he could have looked around and asked a few more questions, but it would probably be wise to never come back here. What exactly did we do? Yaoyorozu spoke highly of her, and never mentioned she may have an issue with the school. Keizo crossed his arms and met the other man's eyes. Despite our issues with the school, we would never shun a disciple for choosing to attend there. We fully support and watch over our students on the roads they chose to take their strength, so we don't mind certain decisions. However, you should try to keep this firmly in mind. Today's fantasy can be tomorrow's reality, and sheer ignorance is never acceptable, or an apology. His purple eyes were piercing as he spoke before nodding his head. Have a good day, Mr. Aizawa. Keizo turned, going back inside. The hero was left to ponder the words of the master as he began to walk away. That was cryptic. I'm getting the feeling he was trying to tell me something. I was hoping I could ask them to help train the students in hand-to-hand combat, but there's no chance of that now. So it's possible to gain superhuman prowess just by training. Just how intense is that training? Maybe I can ask Yaoyorozu to lead the first years to increase their hand-to-hand prowess? He thought to himself. His thoughts then shifted to one. He was surprised to hear that he was responsible for stopping the crisis that happened on the island. The heroes from the joint assignment to take him down have gotten together and shared details, but no one had anything to go on. Now, because of the island incident, he's known internationally. If they don't get him licensed or unmasked, it continues to look bad for Japan's heroes. He doesn't hate the vigilante, but he can't understand him either. Why would someone like him not want to be a licensed pro? Why wouldn't he get on the hero track? There are various ways one could go about becoming a licensed hero, but to reject them completely and operate without any credentials was something he just couldn't understand, especially given how effective is and the hero words he spoke in the shipyard that day still echoed in his head. It was as if it was playing on loop, and it made him sad and upset from the pain in his words. The more he thought about it, the more he racked his brain, the way he spoke, and the pain in his words. He didn't say anything at the hero meeting, but the impossibility that he was quirkless kept entering his mind. Using Yaoyorozu was an example. Even if she fought quirkless, she'd still be on par with All Might. So with proper intense training, could an actual quirkless person accomplish the same feats? There was plenty of video footage on one. He had to change his thinking and look at him outside the box. If he was quirkless, then there had to be an explanation for the powers he had outside of the physical prowess. He walked to his car, thoughts of the infamous vigilante in his head. Their numerous clashes and the back and forth between them, the two could never see eye to eye. They were too different in their ideals as heroes. Still, he learned a lot from coming here. He would fill Nizu in when he got back to school as they were preparing for the summer training camp in a few weeks. The Midoriya house that night. Izuku had gotten off the phone with Momo. Surprisingly, he and Taku made it home first, even though they left before they did. Momo told him about how the entire class was going shopping together for their summer training camp. She asked him if he wanted to come and he agreed. He left his room and found his mother cooking dinner, and his father sitting on the couch while Eri was napping on his lap. Hisashi gently rubbed her head and stroked her hair. Izuku looked at the light-haired girl, knowing she was faking it. She had done this a couple of times. She would pretend to be sleeping on the couch just to get someone she could get cuddles or snuggle up with someone, preferably his mom. Izuku gripped his chin and smirked. Hey Dad, I bought some quirk-grown apples from my island. Let's eat a couple while Eri's asleep. The young girl's ear twitched as her eyes shot open, and she bolted up with a look of shock as she met Izuku's eyes. Hisashi smirked as he also knew she was faking it. Eri, the father said as he swirled his index fingers into her cheeks, causing Eri to cutely moan, while Izuku and Inko to chuckle at the scene. The night came and went with the family eating dinner, Eri getting a bath and Izuku tucking her into her own bed tonight. He laid with her until she fell asleep, kissed her on her forehead, and wished her good night before leaving the room. Inko had also gone to bed, so it was just him and Hisashi chilling in the living room. The father grabbed a beer and was watching a pro basketball game on TV. The living room was dark, only illuminated by the TV. Izuku sat down on the couch next to him, and watched as well. "Is this still your team?" Izuku asked as he watched the game. "Of course. You know I could have gone pro back in the day if I wanted to." The father responded as he watched the game. "You still play, don't you?" "Sometimes. I still play every now and then. It's always fun to get out there and run a couple games. I still remember when you taught me how to play when I was little. I even played during the school's sports festival. My team won because I'm a sniper with a jump shot." Izuku grinned as he did his shooting form. "Actually, the coach and players on the basketball team at school keep badgering me to play. I always politely decline though. Are they that bad? They're not great, but they're not terrible either. I think they took third in their last tournament. You've always had a lot of natural talent for the game, Izuku. If I didn't know the reason why you couldn't, I'd encourage you to play. It's the best sport there is." Hisashi chuckled to himself. "I remember when you were little. I'd come home and we'd go play ball at the park, and you always had to train before we could," he said, smiling at his son. Izuku chuckled, remembering those times. "Yeah, I remember that. We'd go down there, but I wouldn't touch the ball until I was done practicing my moves. Full disclosure, basketball is still my favorite sport." The two Midoriyas sat and continued to watch the game, both cheering and getting into the back and forth from both teams. The game ended with their team winning at the buzzer. Hisashi was about to go to bed as his flight was at 7 a.m. and it was after 10 p.m. "Hey Dad?" Izuku perked up before his father could leave. "Yeah?" he responded. "I'm really grateful you accepted and supported my life as a hero," he said with genuine honesty as his emerald eyes met his father's red. "Well, I admit it's not ideal, but you've more than expressed what you've wanted to be. I never once asked you to think of a plan B, largely because I knew you would be a hero. I'm disappointed that no school would give you a chance just because you're quirkless, but I couldn't be prouder of you for sticking to your guns and marching on like a true champ. I saw what you did the other day, with the suicide jumper." Izuku was surprised to hear this. "You were there?" "Some friends and I were passing by and saw the commotion. I saw you bring her down. I admit it was different from a normal case. But truthfully, all she needed was some understanding. Sometimes that's all some people need, for others to understand instead of judging and spouting generic cliches. So I did that, and I meant everything I said, like how you wish others would have done for you." Hisashi's smile was comforting as Izuku nodded at his words. The father put a hand on his son's shoulder. "You're a good person, Izuku. The world isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Nothing is ever black and white, and it can be complicated at the best of times. You understand that more anyone of your age should. I've always seen this spark in you, and it's incredible, and it's yours. I've always believed in you, and I've always known you'd be great however you choose to use it." His words were warm. Izuku was happy to have the father he did. "Stay gold, son." Izuku hugged his father, and the two embraced. After a while they let go of the hug and looked at each other. "One more thing, what do you think of Eri? You've had some time with her now, so what do you think?" Izuku asked. "She's a good kid. You did a good thing saving her, Izuku. Speaking of, do you know anything about the guy who was hurting her?" "All I know is that their operation has stalled since losing Eri. It's only a matter of time before everything crumbles for them." "Good," Hisashi said as he stretched. "I'm gonna call it a night. Gotta head to the airport in a couple hours, you know." "Oh, before I forget," he said as he went to he and Inko's room before coming out holding a white envelope with Izuku's name on it. "I know it's early, but I wanted to give you this before I left. Happy birthday, Izuku." He hands the envelope to his son. Izuku took the envelope and looked at what was inside, his detective skills giving him an idea of what could be in it given how thin the contents was when he grabbed it. He opened it. A happy smile edged across his face as he took out 2 V.I.P tickets to HeroCon. He was already planning to go. He was just glad he didn't already get tickets. "Thanks, Dad," he said with gratitude as he hugged his father. "I knew you'd like it. I heard how you missed it last year because of double life, so go out and enjoy yourself this time around." The father and son shared a warm, heartfelt moment before the father went to bed. Izuku went to bed, ready to continue enjoying his summer break to the fullest. The next day, Izuku woke up early the next morning. He heard his father leave the house a few hours prior to head to the airport. He'd let them know when he made it back to America. After he left his room, he found that Eri was already in the bathroom brushing her teeth, and after exchanging good mornings, Izuku joined her. After he finishes, he gets himself dressed, and he's ready to do his morning training. Eri wanted to come with him, so he got her dressed and put on her green wig. They leave the apartment, and do some stretches when they get downstairs. Alright, let's go, Eri, Izuku says as he puts the little girl on his back and goes into a run. Eri was having the time of her life as they ran across the city. Izuku added parkour to the mix, running on walls, flipping across buildings and triangle jumping. After a while they made it to Dagoba Beach. Izuku ran to the far side of the beach before he let Eri off his back. Izuku clasped his hands and began to take deep breaths. Eri stood beside him and did the same. Eri had recently begun to take an interest in martial arts. She had joined him in his morning training a few times now, and she enjoyed doing this new thing with Izuku. The first time she joined him, she was excited as she clung on to every word Izuku said to her. She was slowly understanding what tranquility meant, as Izuku had said that's why they did this at the beach. Izuku then went into his motions, practicing punches, kicks and various strikes, with Eri mirroring him as best she could and him giving pointers when needed. Izuku just wanted Eri to have fun with it. He never pushed her when she trained with him, though it was clear she was learning and listening to everything he taught her. After finishing the training, they both head home and find Inko making breakfast as they enter the house. The mother greets them as they all sit down to eat. They talk amongst each other, with all of them eager for Hisashi to come back. Eri admitted she missed him, and for the first time in a while she didn't zone out watching the TV, something both Izuku and Inko noticed. Guess she only does that around Dad, Hisashi. The Greenettes thought at the same time, looking at the light-haired girl. Inko turned to her son, Izuku, how long do you plan on being out today? Can't really give a straight answer. Anything can happen. Why, what's up? I'm going out with Mitsuki and some others for a girls' night. So I'll need you here to watch Eri. That's fine. When are you going out? Mitsuki said she'll be here around 8 o'clock. Okay, I'll be back by then. Izumi? Eri perked up. Yeah, Eri. Where are you going? She asked, innocently. Remember what I told you before? I go around and I help people, and it's really important to me. He answered. A part of him did feel a little guilty for not cluing Eri in on his hero life. But for now it's for the best until she can legally be theirs. Can I come with you? She asked excitedly with hope in her eyes. He gave her a gentle smile. Maybe when you're a little older, okay. Eri pouted at his answer before turning back to her food. Both Midoriya's inwardly laughed at how cute Eri's pout is. After handling everything at home, Izuku left and slipped into a secluded spot and got into his beta suit. He leaps on the roof of a building and looks out to the city. He pulls out his hero phone to check the app for any requests. There were none at the moment, but it normally didn't take long for them to pile up. He put the phone back in his pocket, smiling as he took a breath. Alright, let's see what's happening in the city. He spread his senses, picking up a disturbance before launching into the air. In a rundown-looking apartment in Yamanashi, a short old man speaks on the phone with all might. So how are things going out there, Toshinori? Well, Melissa's obviously not doing well. Dave's recovering quickly from his gunshot wound and true to form. They're speeding up his trial. It's a tough situation. Still, it's hard to believe AFO was pulling the strings here. It's still a surprise to me. I had hoped his influence had dwindled since the old days, but it seems he still has connections, he said with frustration in his voice, stemming from his failure to kill the villain. The old man sighed. It's not your fault, Toshinori, he said empathetically. I hear you, sir. But still, for him to survive such injuries. I risked it all to defeat him, but somehow I'm still lacking. It's my greatest failure, he said, clutching his side. You're being too hard on yourself. He's a worm. Hiding away and leaving others to do his dirty work is what he's always been best at. Apparently the only reason he got involved in this was because he wanted a hand in my friend indulging in villainy. Fortunately, everything turned out alright. Oh yeah, that one kid put a stop to everything, right? The old man asked. All Might smiled. Yeah, he did. I don't even want to think about what might have happened if he hadn't been there. What's the kid's story anyway? According to your biggest fan, Naitai, he's nothing compared to you. All Might took a moment to take in the older man's words. He was more than impressed by the abilities of the illegal hero. Though they stopped the villain together, he was pretty sure one didn't need his help. After all, he was the one who needed saving. He never told Night Eye or young Togata about his fight with one and the failed operation. Since the meeting, he's been working with Tsukachi to try and uncover one's quirk and anything that may lead to learning his identity, as his words from the shipyard seemingly play on loop in his head. One was stronger than he was. Whatever his power was, it was greater than Ofei, and his heart as a hero is something truly incredible. If I'm being honest, I don't know anything about him. He's completely shrouded in mystery. But what I can say for certain is that he's the definition of a hero. You're sounding pretty sentimental. I admit, when I first heard of him, I thought he was your successor. Hell, I'm pretty curious why he's a vigilante. As I said, he's a mystery. He won't give a straight answer, and even when he implies a reason, it's still hard to understand what he means. Okay, take care of everything over there, Tashinori. I'll see you when you get back. Okay, goodbye, sir. The hero said before hanging up. The old man sat on the couch, thinking to himself for a moment when a face came out of the wall. Hey, Gran Torino, I disarmed all the fake bombs, sir. This was my best time yet, said Mirio Togata with a smile and his signature enthusiasm. Good kid, you're getting better and using OFA and your own quirk. Thanks. I can use 30% in a head-on fight, but it's hard to control more than 20% combined with permeation. The blonde teen said, still smiling. Gran Torino blasted forward to kick the face in the wall, only for his foot to hit the wall as Mirio's face became ghostly. Whoa! That one would have hurt, Mirio said with the hero's foot in his forehead. The older hero kicked off the wall and landed. There's proof you're getting better. He smiled at the young man, who closed his eyes and accepted the praise. I just got off the phone with All Might. I figure he'll be gone for a week or so, give or take. Mirio's body came out of the wall. Man, I'm a little bummed out I didn't go with him to Island. Maybe things could have gone a little differently. He asked you to go with him, right? Yeah, I really wanted to go too. But sir didn't think it was important, so for my summer break all I get to do is train and work. Night Eye's always been too rigid. All work and no play is a terrible combination. Ha ha ha. Well, there is a lot of truth to that. Sir actually joked that I can relax all I want once I master One for All. Speaking of, what do you know about One? Mirio was surprised to hear his question. One? Actually, I think he's pretty cool. Though Sir really doesn't like him that much. Mirio answered, rubbing the back of his head. Any reason why? The pro asked. Don't know really. I think it's a combination of things. The biggest of which is that he's just as strong, if not stronger, than All Might. And if I'm being honest, they're a lot alike in the sense of they're both the shining symbol types. The ones that even in dark moments can illuminate everything and assure everything will be alright. A smile spread across the hero's face. I've noticed that too. The guy basically came out of nowhere. But the similarities between him and All Might are apparent. Who do you think is stronger between them? He asked the youth curiously. My heart wants me to say All Might, then again one did obliterate a meteor with one punch, so. That right? Any idea what his quirk could be? No clue. But I did hear from Eraserhead once that his quirk doesn't work on him. Eraserhead? That's the guy that erases people's quirks by looking at them, right? That's right. Mirio answered honestly. Gran Torino took in the teen's words. He had heard of several feats of power shown by One, and the various disasters he's prevented. Tashinori even confided in him that the vigilante defeated the blue villain that wrecked Muzurifu, someone he couldn't defeat and likened to a foe in terms of raw power. He remembers first seeing him in the media and scolding Tashinori for allowing his successor to be a vigilante, only to learn he didn't, and he wasn't. He wanted to meet this youngster. The younger generation of heroes were usually not in the least bit interesting. Most didn't even fully carry the heroic ideals of the past. But his talk with Tashinori has piqued his interest in the vigilante. Whatever his power is, it's something greater than One for All. He looked seriously deep in thought, something that lightly concerned Mirio. Everything okay, Gran Torino? Yeah, I'm fine, kid, just had a thought. Hey, he has an app, doesn't he? The older man asked. Mirio's face lit up. Yeah. I got it right here, he exclaimed as he pulled out his phone and showed the app to him. Just don't tell Sir about this. One stood in the middle of a bank as the 5 robbers he subdued were restrained and waiting for police to pick them up. He responded to police scanners telling of a bank robbery, so he headed over and quickly took care of everything. One looked down at the robbers, who all had looks of defeat on their faces. Guys, it's called a job. Doing something as cliché as bank robbing is not a good use of your time. There's a difference between desperate for money and being too lazy to work. Several of the villains groaned in annoyance. Yeah, shut up already, one. Believe it or not, I'm actually trying to help you, not judge, he said as the police came in and took the robbers away. He shook hands with several hostages, bank employees and surprisingly police before he took off. Another alert came through on the app, a situation in Yamanashi where someone had heard screams of distress coming from a building. He accepted the request and sped towards the location. He made it in a flash and found the place of the request was a 4-floor, run-down-looking apartment with a busted welcome sign over the front door. There were several broken windows, cracks along the walls, and the paint was chipped away from most of the building. A call came through on the app. Yo. This is One. He answered. One. Wow, I didn't think you'd answer so fast. The voice on the other line said, sounding vaguely familiar. What can I say? I'm always on the move. You reported hearing a scream that implied distress? Yeah, I was passing by when I heard the scream. There weren't any heroes around, so I called you. Okay, I've arrived at the building and I'll check things out. Wait, you're already there? The caller asked, surprised. I'm fast, as a hero should be. He looked upward and caught a flash of white in an upper window. You're not inside the building, are you? He asked, becoming skeptical of the authenticity of the call. No, I'm at work. I was worried about something, so I called a hero. He could hear the lie in those words. Okay. You'll know when I'm done here, he said before hanging up. One looked up and down the building. He could sense two people inside and the faintness of whispering. This is either a trap or a joke. Let's find out which, he thought as he opened the front door. To his surprise, the first floor of the building was lit up with the look of a standard living room. But what was really surprising was the short man in a yellow and white hero costume face down in a pool of red. He was surprised for a moment, as the scent of blood would have hit his nose even before he walked in here. Then he recognized the smell, and the hero. He looked quickly across the room and spread his senses before approaching the face-down man. Sir, are you alright? Hello? The man's head suddenly shot up, showing that he was an elderly man wearing a black domino mask. He was clearly acting as he picked himself up, revealing sausage links in the red pool. I came here to investigate a scream. It seems it was a misunderstanding. The elderly hero was shaking as he smiled. Oh, I was making a big plate of ketchup and sausages when I slipped and fell down. Clumsy me, he said as he patted himself off. He made eye contact with the vigilante. So what's your name, boy? He asked with a smile. The hero met his eyes. I'm One. And can we please stop this charade, Gran Torino? I do have other things I could be doing right now. Who now? He asked, sounding senile. You're dealing with a hero fanatic here, sir. On top of that, your acting and setup for this wasn't the best. One, I'm not the type to instantly believe what I see. And if you're going to use something red to mimic blood, it better be blood, because ketchup will always smell like ketchup. 2. The way your body was positioned indicated that you laid yourself on the floor. 3. Your senile performance isn't convincing. You may have sold it if you hunched while holding the cane, and the trembling is clearly intentional and your expression is clearly forced. 4. I sense no malice in this building, meaning the person upstairs is no killer. Someone younger, and most likely the one who called, because older people don't usually contact a vigilante through an app. His expression was serious as he finished his deduction. The goofy smile on the older man's face shifted into a serious one. Well, damn. You really are good. He then began to fly across the room at high speed, with One's eyes following his every movement. He launched himself off the wall and landed above the hero with a grin on his face. I want you to show me what you can do. Starting with, One suddenly sensed malice, and turned just in tip to see Lemillion coming out of the wall on his right side, ready to nail him with a punch. The vigilante brought his left hand up to catch the fist, but as if he were a ghost, the fist went through his hand, heading for his face. One shifts his head back, avoiding the punch, and in that same motion throws a right palm strike at the blonde's face. Lemillion dodges the hit, shifts his body, and brings up a kick to strike One, who butterfly flips over the older teen. He lands and speed blitzes Lemillion, who turns around just in time for One to drop and sweep his legs, making him hit the ground hard. One jumps back to dodge a stomp from Gran Torino. The hero then launches himself at one who shifts his body, causing the shorter man to fly by him. What is this even about? He asked as he prepared for another strike from the two. Gran Torino slammed against the wall. You don't listen, do you? I said I want to see what you can do, he exclaimed with an excited grin as he jumped across the room. And he's not the only one, said Lemillion, who was sinking into the ground. One was slightly annoyed with this. He hated those requests on the app that turned out to be some kind of B.S instead of someone in need or help with something, and this was one of them. Whether it was a trap or a joke, he didn't care. He could be helping someone right now, and these two were wasting his time, so he decided to end this fast. Gran Torino launched off the wall, and in a flash of speed was grabbed by one to his surprise. As he landed, he sensed malice and back-flipped into the air, avoiding an uppercut from Lemillion, who shot from the ground where he previously stood. The hero in training was surprised he missed, as one cocked back his right arm and tossed Gran Torino into the younger hero, sending them both flying back, crashing through a door into the next room. One landed and walked into the darkly lit room and saw the both men sprawled against the wall, which they crashed into and seemingly cracked. Okay, are we done here? Because I do have other important things I could be doing right now, and full disclosure, people who make up a situation just to get me somewhere are the absolute worst in my mind, he said sternly. The two managed to pick themselves up. Gran Torino patted himself off. Geez, relax, kid. It was just a little test. Well, there is a simple way to do that, just ask. Speaking of which, why did you do this? Gran Torino brushed off his shoulder. Well, I was curious about you and wanted to see if all I heard was true or not. Lemillion picked himself up, closing his eyes as he rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about this one. The hero took in their words and sighed. It's whatever. Next time just let me know of an actual situation, then we can speak after the facts. How have you been, Lemillion? Meh, you know how it is, I'm training and working. Not the most favorable way to spend a summer break, but it is what it is. All work and no play is a bad mix. One said. That's what he said. He laughed while gesturing to Gran Torino. Well, it's safe to say you passed the test. That being said, you mind telling me what your quirk is? It must be pretty impressive with all that you've done, the old hero asked. One faced the two as he registered the question. My quirk is irrelevant, sir. At the end of the day, what's most important is the choice to help those in trouble, coupled with a little fire and desire, he responded. Gran Torino narrowed his eyes slightly. He's avoiding the question. Tashinori does the same thing when asked about his quirk. He thought to himself. I have a question for you, Lemillion. Why are you here? I thought you normally work with Sir Night Eye. Normally I do. I'm still working with him, but he thought it would be a good idea for me to learn from an experienced hero like Gran Torino. Fun fact, he even trained All Might back in the day when he taught a UA. One's face lit up behind his cowl. Wait, really? He asked in surprise as he looked down at the older man. Whoa, I totally didn't know that, he said excitedly, his hero fanboy slipping out. Gran Torino was surprised by this sudden excitement. He didn't expect one to be such a fanboy. Clearly he was, as not many people knew a hero as old as he was. That was a long time ago. I was only there for a year, and most of our training sessions were me beating the crap out of him, and him trying not to take a beating. He shrugged it off. One chuckled, remembering similar training sessions he's had with his masters over the years. I can definitely relate to that. Still, I know you because I'm a huge hero fan, but you'd think you'd be more well known since you trained the #1 hero. He suddenly realized what he just said, his intuition telling him why he was actually called here. Wait, is this about One for All? He asked casually. Lemillion's eyes widened while Gran Torino narrowed his. How do you know about that? The old man asked in a serious tone. One gave a sly smile. I know a lot of things, Gran Torino. Don't worry, the secret's safe. But I am curious. All Might doesn't have much time left as a hero, let alone the symbol of peace. All for One is very much active with his hands in many underground operations. How are you planning to deal with it? There was a silence before he continued. Things are getting pretty crazy with villains lately, and that's just what you can see. There are many things bubbling under the surface that you can't see that can turn into real problems. Whether you're physically, mentally or emotionally ready is irrelevant, because as All Might's successor and more importantly as a hero, You have a role to play in dealing with this. So what's the plan? He asked, looking right at Lemillion. Both men were surprised at his words. Neither of them had any idea he knew about OFA. He knows about AFO, and he knows that All Might is losing his strength, and he knows Lemillion has it. He's clearly very aware of the current climate of society despite his current position in it, and he doesn't want to take it on by himself just because he's powerful. The blonde hero looked at the vigilante, taking his words as he formed his thoughts. Sir had asked him a similar question before, but even he didn't sound as serious as one is now. But the answer he had when accepted the power is the same one he has now. He looked directly at the vigilante. The plan is in the meaning of my name, to be a hero who can at the bare minimum save 1 million people. I'm working as hard as I can to master OFA in conjunction with my own quirk and be a worthy successor as soon as possible. He answered without any hesitation. Okay, I like that answer, but I was thinking more of an immediate action. Like, do we have any leads on the League of Villains? Because find them, and we find AFO. You seem very eager to track him down. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Gran Torino asked seriously. Of course I do. I've beaten him once already. But he tricked me and was able to run away. I know what he is and what he wants and how he uses people. And the situation on island is all the more reason to take him down ASAP. The older man's face shifted in surprise in hearing he not only encountered AFO, but he beat him. Toshinori never mentioned it, just who exactly was this guy? The monster that's been ruling over the underworld for over a century was beaten by a vigilante? He wouldn't get a straight answer to his quirk, but something that surpasses OFA isn't something that naturally comes around too often. Everyone tensed up as the building began to rumble. An earthquake? Lemillion stated as the building shook. One felt the tremors of the rumbling earth, seemed stronger than the usual ones. The hero bolted from the building as he felt the quake getting stronger. One! Gran Torino called out as the vigilante took off. Once back on the street, one could see the full impact of the ongoing earthquake. Stanley, it was as if the tremors were originating from a specific point close by. People were ducking in cover, getting inside to safety. Cracks ran along the road as people in their cars tried to safely deal with the situation. He spread his senses and traced them back to the mountains just outside the city. He was surprised when they suddenly stopped. A wave of malice washed over him and the city itself, the source of which was originating from the mountains. His eyes narrowed as he looked past the city and into mountains, seeing a giant reptilian creature as big as a mountain itself. It had horns on its head and spikes on its back, and it was just colossal. At least 3 times the size of Empty Lady. As far away as it was so big that it was clearly visible from the city. Many people looked up and a mix of panic and fear spread across the faces of the people who saw it. Lemillion and Gran Torino arrived outside. Seems the rumbling has stopped, Gran Torino stated. Lemillion looked around and could sense the weird tension in the air. He also noted how everyone around, including one, was looking up. He followed everyone's gaze and his eyes widened at seeing what everyone else was seeing. A colossal reptilian-like creature that seemed to be looking down at the city from its vantage point in the mountains. What the heck? He said in a low voice with a hint of fear. One quickly shifted and suddenly pointed at the creature. Run! It's Godzilla! He yelled out dramatically. Everyone who heard his words all turned in the direction of the voice, and all eyes that fell on the vigilante had a look that said, "Really, bro?" Gran Torino shook his head. Were you even alive when that reference was actually funny? One shrugged his shoulders. Who knows? I was just trying to ease the situation. The creature reared back its head and produced a mighty roar that cracked and shattered windows all throughout the city, causing everyone to cover their ears to block out the noise. However, in the midst of this there was one person who in a flash of speed took off into the air, unaffected and unintimidated by the roar. One kicked off the air and like a missile flew towards the creature. As he flew closer, he had many questions going through his mind, but they would have to wait until he neutralized it. If this was some kind of dinosaur that somehow survived until the modern day, for the sake of science, hopefully he wouldn't have to kill it. As he ended his thoughts, the creature seemed to notice him coming. Its red eyes locked on him as it opened its mouth and a red light emitted from it. Crap! One quickly thought as a giant energy beam was fired at him. His eyes quickly shifted to the city behind him as he noticed the angle of the blast. One kicks off the air and spins into an upward kick that redirects the blast upward, creating a giant hole that parts the clouds. The hero turns back to the creature. This thing's not playing around. That blast would have taken out half the city if I hadn't diverted it upwards, he thought as it let out another roar. This thing's at least 70 m tall, it makes Empty Lady look like a midget in comparison. He kicked off the air twice, launching himself forward, and after a third kick performed an aerial spin to increase his speed. So much for taking it alive, he thought as he shot forward with a powerful kick off the air. He created 4 flash clones that flew alongside him, and they speed blitzed the monster. The sound of powerful blows rang out as the hero and his clones attacked the monster's hard skin. He was surprised at how hard it was at first, so he decided to put more power behind the attacks. The 5s once zipped around the monster, pummeling it with brutal hits from bottom to top. The effect of his blows showed as the monster roared in pain. After 10 seconds his clones disappeared. He punched its stomach, and in a flash he was in its face. Its red eyes locked on him menacingly. One faced him, meeting his gaze unflinching. "Huh, you really are Godzilla." He suddenly felt the creature's malice, and crossed his arms as a giant claw slammed into his right side. He was sent flying and crashed through 3 mountains before he was able to correct himself and land. He tore through the ground as he skid back. He used his hand to help bring himself to a stop. He looked ahead at the distance he flew and the destruction it caused. Damn, I let my guard down. Bastard's fast for how big he is. He sensed a presence, and turned to his 10 o'clock and saw a group of hikers looking at him in pure shock. The hikers were in a group of 2 men and 1 woman, all looking in their early 20s. "Is that one?" the woman asked. "Yeah, that's him. What the heck are you doing, man?" one of the men asked. We gave an assuring smile. "We kinda have a kaiju situation going on right now. This mountain is not the safest place to be right now." He turned back to the monster, and looking just past the mountains he could see it take a few steps before turning to his direction. One's eyes widened as it opened its mouth and fired an energy beam at the ground. The giant blast ran along the mountain range, obliterating everything it touched and causing massive explosions as the creature raised its head. One turned to the hikers, who panicked at the incoming light. One quickly stood in front of them. He formed his hand into a chop and tucked his arm back as if drawing a sword. Aye, sword, rising sun." He swung his hand in an upward, circular slash that split the beam before it could hit them. This left the hikers and the immediate area unharmed. But after that blast, everything changed. "I don't know what this thing is, but it clearly has no regard for life. It's just senseless destruction and malice. Just a beast with no rational or reasoning," he thought as he looked at the destruction around him. He sighed. "This is definitely one of those if I don't then who will situations. I gotta end this now, or the lack of the country's gorgeous mountain landscape is only the beginning," he thought as he prepared himself. "It's firing again," the woman yelled out as she pointed in terror. One had noticed and was undeterred. Actually, he was waiting for it to do this again. He formed both his hands into chops, crossed and tucked them at his side. He shifted his body, ready to rush forward. Aye, sword, Notoriu, he called out as he sped blitzed forward. He slashed at another mountain and cut through it completely at the summit. He then used his right palm to pop the severed earth into the air. With 2 slashes he cut the mountain peak into 4 even pieces. He spun and pressed his foot against one of the chunks before he kicked, launching it off his foot with the speed of a bullet. He then skillfully did the same with the other 3. The first chunk of rock flew at the face of the monster before it crashed into its glowing mouth. The others followed suit as the monster's mouth was full of rock. Shock was written on the creature's face. One flashed towards the monster, just as I suspected. "The energy you build up comes from your stomach and concentrates in your mouth. Blocking that off, and energy is stuck in your stomach with nowhere to go." His theory was becoming more and more accurate as the monster's stomach began to glow red. He flashes in front of its glowing stomach. "You're looking a little red there, big guy." He threw an uppercut so powerful the colossal monster exploded. A giant beam of energy shot into the air, guided by the force of one punch that could be seen from miles away. As the beam faded, all that remained was a massive hole of burnt earth where a monster once stood. One crossed his arms as he floated. "Man, not even its bones remained. My and its power must have disintegrated them. It would have been a good contribution to science. Hope no archaeologist holds this against me too much." He flew away to help anyone on the mountain before heading back to the city. He made it back to the city and had answered any and all questions about the chaos that just unfolded. Fortunately, no one died, and though he was originally irritated with the situation, he decided to stay in the city and help Lemillion train. They went to an empty lot where no one could disturb them. He ran the blonde through serious combat training while Gran Torino observed the two. Lemillion was thrown off as he never faced someone with an ability similar to his. Before they started, he thought he may have some sort of advantage, but he learned very quickly one was built differently. He quickly figured out all his moves and saw through his every strategy. It was as if the vigilante was reading his mind. He couldn't touch him, and he couldn't become permeable fast enough to avoid his attacks and become permeable and hold on to his full cowling. Training with one was more painful and mind-racking than any he's done before. Lemillion rushed at the vigilante. Shrouded in yellow lightning, he threw a flurry of punches that one blocked easily with a flat palm. One's hand goes through Lemillion's right hook as he tries to deflect his punch. The blonde's fist keeps going, but to his shock his fist goes through his head. Before he could process, he felt a hit to his right side and went crashing into a wall. The hero in training gripped his side as he looked to see what hit him. To his surprise, he saw two once. One smiled at the blonde while Gran Torino just looked impressed. "I can see you're surprised, Lemillion. What you thought was me becoming intangible was actually an afterimage I made." "How?" "I never took my eyes off you. It's all about speed, my friend." "Huh?" he asked, still not understanding. "What he means is that he did it when you became permeable to get around his blocking. That right hook you threw at the end there, that's when he did it," the old pro explained. Lemillion had a smile as he picked himself up off the ground. "Geez, one, just how fast are you?" Pretty fast," he answered nonchalantly. "Anyway, it's starting to get dark. I say we call it a day," Gran Torino suggested. "Sweet. Let's go and grab some food. What's good in the area?" one asked. "I passed by the ramen shop that looked pretty good on patrol yesterday." "The place was hopping," Lemillion exclaimed. "Then let's go," one eagerly agreed. After a while they were sitting at the counter at the ramen shop. All three of them ordered bowls of miso ramen and began to eat. The taste of the noodles and the flavors of the broth blended in perfectly. Lemillion slurps down a large mouthful of noodles and leans back exhaling. "Man, I knew this place would be good. You can never go wrong with good ramen. This is really good." "You a fan of ramen, Lemillion?" one asked. "It's my favorite. Some think it's bland and simple, but it's always been number one for me," he answered confidently with a smile. "I hear you on that. Katsudon's always been my favorite, but I've always been a fan of pretty much everything. My taste buds went on many adventures during my training," he said, smiling at the memories of the many different things he's eaten since knowing his masters. "Speaking of, that's what I'm most curious about, one. Just what kind of training did you do?" Lemillion asks, genuinely curious. "Lots of blood, sweat and agony, with fire and desire being the only reason I survived. And I picked up a lot of skills along the way with the end goal to be the best hero I could be," he answered with a confident smirk. "Ha ha! Way to answer without answering." The blonde laughed with the old man next to him thinking the same thing. One merely chuckled and shrugged before he continued to eat. The night went on with Lemillion and one talking amongst each other. Some people even asked for autographs and pictures with one, which he happily obliged. The word had quickly spread of how one took care of the giant monster that appeared today. It was so big that many were able to see the battle from the city, and many had questions as to how it just suddenly blew up. Gran Torino and Lemillion were both impressed at how quickly he was able to spring into action. He took off and handled a threat that serious before any pros could mobilize or arrive on the scene. They saw the devastation of the energy beams, and there was no denying he saved the city and everyone in it from certain destruction. However, as far as the old pro was concerned, this only raised more questions regarding the vigilante. They exit the ramen shop and step out onto the street. It was now dark outside and the city was fully lit. The three said their goodbyes and one went on his way. He leaped into the air and began to skywalk back to Muzurifu. As he soared through the air, he sensed a disturbance and headed over. He flew above to the roof of a building where a helicopter seemed to be ready to take off. The issue was that there were at least 6 guys on the ground tied up on the ground. Whoever was piloting the helicopter was clearly stealing it. He kicked off the air and landed on the roof with silent grace. His eyes locked onto the pilot, and his face morphed into one of pure shock. In the pilot's seat, looking at him, was Taki Tachibana. She shot him a mischievous smile. I was wondering when you'd show up," she said as she began to raise the chopper off the ground. "Now let's dance." She dipped the chopper off the side of the building. "The hell?" he said in surprise as he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small EMP grenade. He set it off and tossed it into the chopper just as she abandoned the falling machine, jumping onto a nearby ledge. One dove off the roof. The EMP grenade had knocked out the power in the helicopter, so he was able to stop the blades with his bare hands. He then got under it, grabbing the landing gear skids and using Skywalk to fly it back to the roof and gently put it back, much to the relief of the horrified public below. He could sense eyes on him and turned to face Tachibana, who met his gaze from the next building over before she bolted along the edge of the building. One leaped onto the ledge and chased after her. Tachibana jumps from her original building onto another building under construction. She flips through the air and lands on wooden boards. She slides down and runs along the edge with one doing the same not far behind her. She dips through a blue tarp sheet and slips in between wooden boards. One comes through the sheet just in time to see her grab a hydrogen tank and jumps through a glass window. As she falls, she throws it up just as one makes it to the window. The hero sees the hydrogen tank and a bullet be shot into it, causing an explosion that he tanks. As the smoke cleared, one's thoughts were firing. Senpai down there, but that shot came from the north. He quickly scanned the area of the shot but didn't see anyone. Issues for later. I can't lose her, he thought before diving after the ash-haired woman. He chased her onto another building under construction. Tachibana speed blitzed across the metal beams and made her way down, fast as ever senpai. One thought as he spotted her as he sped up and flipped down, putting his parkour repertoire on full display. Tachibana leaps across several buildings and triangle jumps before launching herself off a ledge, grabbing a cable and swinging across before crashing through the glass ceiling of a train station. One leaped from the ledge and kicked off the air once and then shot himself through the hole Tachibana made. He crouches as he lands and looks around, surprised that he lost sight of her when she came in here. He couldn't sense her eyes on him, implying she was hiding, and as he closed his eyes and spread his senses, he found her. Opening his eyes, he saw two metal boxes with wires attached to them taped to the wall in front of him. Really? He thought as he quickly attempted to disarm the bombs. He felt the one he was touching suddenly vibrate, and he jumped back just as the bombs went off. The blast was so strong it caused the metal tower over the station to fall over. Small fires burned across the area. One stood on the track after avoiding the blast. He turned to his left and saw Tachibana looking at him. She had a sly grin as the two locked eyes. "You're better than I thought," she said just as a train rounded her, with one backflipping onto the platform to avoid the train and her disappearing when it passed. One looked to where she previously stood. He couldn't sense her presence anymore. She was gone. He didn't want to arrest her, but he really wanted to talk to her. As he left to clean up the mess made here, his only thoughts were on the ash-haired woman. "Tachibana senpai, what happened to you? How did you get here, and where is Stain?" As the police and pros showed up to the scene, one simply explained he was chasing a villain who set off a bomb. He told of how the villain got away and that they were long gone. The police took his report while some heroes looked at him with judgment. He felt another presence, and looked up to see a large pair of wings and the familiar hero they were attached to flying over him. "Hawks," one called out, getting the attention of everyone. The winged hero landed and walked up to the infamous vigilante. Well, I see you've been pretty busy today," he said with a smile. "I wouldn't go that far. It's been one of those right place, right time situations," one responded with a smirk. Hawks smirked. "Well, thank whatever god you subscribe to for that. Wanna go for a flight?" the blonde asked, giving a look that said that wasn't a question. One took the hint. "Sure. Later, guys." He waved to the others before taking off into the air with the winged hero. One sky walked while Hawks flew, as they left Yamanashi seemingly heading in the direction of Musafafu. "Yo Hawks, not that I mind the beauty of the night sky, but what's this about? You wanted to ask me something you couldn't say in front of everyone else, right?" Sharp as always, one. "Let me get right to the point. Someone wants to meet up with you. Don't ask me what it's about. I was just asked to give you this," he said while handing one a slip of paper. One took the paper and unfolded it, and it read, 1. Meet me in Musitifu Memorial Park at 9 p.m. in the castle-like area overlooking the pond. I have something I'm sure you'll be interested in. HM, wildly inauspicious. 1 commented after reading the note. Ha, I know, right? I always get stuck with these sketchy jobs. Still, I think you should at least check it out. 1. Well, I'm all for the opinion of springing an obvious trap, so I guess this is no different. I'm pretty sure it's not that, but still check it out, he said before flying off. 1 looked up and watched the hero fly away. Who do you really work for, Hawks? That's the 3rd time you've implied that you answered to someone else. Thoughts for later. He ended his thoughts as he pulled out his hero phone and called Taku. After a couple of rings he picked up. Yo, what's up, bro? What's up? You called me, man. The Greynet responded on the other side. Yeah, about that. I just got a meeting set up with somebody in Musitifu Park at 9 o'clock. Long story short, Mom's going out at 8, so can you hang out with Ari until I get home? He asked his friend. Yeah, I can do that. Who are you meeting with anyway? I don't even know that. Hawks just gave me a note with some anonymous person wanting me to meet them in the park. Hawks suggests this is a good thing though. Well, like my grandpa on my mom's side used to say, a bird will never steer you wrong. Really? 1 asked. Yep, he truly used to say that. God, I miss him. Okay, leaving that alone for now, but back to Ari. Yeah, I got her. I'll head over to your place now. Good looking out, Taku. I appreciate you. I'm enjoying my day off and everything. Still, I heard about the situation in Yamanashi. Since I got you on the line, what the hell happened? He asked, genuinely surprised that something this big just came out of nowhere. Don't really know myself. My biggest theory at this point is that some dinosaur-esque monster has been hibernating deep in the mountains outside of Yamanashi for literally millions of years before it suddenly woke up. He answered with his best deduction. That makes surprisingly too much sense. Taku huffed, thinking the same thing. Anyway, I'll be at your place in a bit. Let me know how this whatever meeting goes. I will. See you later and thanks again for this. 1 hung up the phone, jumped and kicked off the air and flew like a bullet before doing it again and again, while adding spins after every 3rd kick. He arrived at the park and waited at the meeting place and waited for someone to show up. This spot was off by itself and the park was pretty much empty, making this the perfect place for an anonymous meeting. He had about 40 minutes to wait. He could have gotten here earlier by running, but he chose to fly because it's more fun. Musitifu Memorial Park was vast with several parks and ponds with ducks and koi fish inhabiting them. There were several walking trails that ran through the wilderness of the park with many people visiting it daily. He had no requests on the app and he sensed no immediate trouble in the area, so he could afford to just wait and take in the calming nature of the park. It's a little before 9 o'clock. 1 was feeding the fish in the pond when he sensed a presence approaching him. So you've arrived, he thought as he tossed the fish food into the water. Splashes immediately erupted as the fish fought over it. 1 had a small smile. The fish are worse than the ducks apparently. Hello 1. A masculine voice said from behind him. The hero turned around to see a tall man wearing a trench coat and a fedora. The lights around the area provided enough light for the vigilante to make out the man's face, and it shocked him. He bowed his head. Hello to you as well. Today has been full of surprises. But I definitely wasn't expecting for you to be the one to set up an audience with me. The man smiled as he approached. Sorry for such sketchy formalities, but this is just the way it had to be. I'm happy you came though. When someone wants me to meet them somewhere, it's usually an obvious trap, and I'm a fan of springing obvious traps. But my friend Hawks assured this would be none of that, so I figured I'd take him at his word and show up. Plus the fact that you came alone. And I sense no one else in the area on top of no malice, it's a pretty safe bet this is genuine. So how can I help you, Prime Minister Neo Yamato? The older man smiled as he took off his fedora revealing his full head. He was a tall man at 41 years old, he had dark brown hair and eyes, his features were sharp and considered handsome. He was very popular with the public with his policies and legislation. He was also the youngest Prime Minister in the history of Japan, being elected at 40, and has made significant strides in the country's infrastructure in just his first year on the job. Good to know you get right to the point. But before that, let's have a quick talk, he said with a cool smile. Alright. But I kinda pawned off a responsibility of mine onto a good friend, so we'll have to make it quick. Fine. But first I want to thank you for taking care of the situation in Yamanashi today. Nature is truly unpredictable. A 70-meter monster under the mountains of a nearby city. Yeah, that's not something you see every day. I'm glad everything turned out alright. Still, it's concerning, the level of threats that have appeared in the past few months. There's been a shift in the world and not a positive one, and I fear Japan just may be headed for some dark times. He stood beside one and looked out to the pond. There was a pause before he spoke again. You feel it, don't you? The blue villain, this league of villains, the hero killer, and the meteor, and now a literal kaiju. And every time these threats appeared, before they could truly do their worst, you were there. He turned to the slightly shorter vigilante. One smiled confidently. It's only natural a hero saves people, right? Yamato closed his eyes and smiled at his answer. You truly are a hero, aren't you? I admit I've gotten a bit of a headache from the media bombarding me with questions about you, on top of our representatives at the U.N. facing their own drama. However, he bowed his head. On behalf of the great nation of Japan, I thank you for everything you've done, he said with gratitude. One was shocked. It wasn't every day he met a political figure, and most of them never condoned his actions, at least while the camera was on. But right now the most influential man in the country was acknowledging him with sincerity and respect. He had wondered who had Hawks deliver the message, and he wondered what they could want, but a chat with the Prime Minister was something he never expected. The older man lifted his head and locked eyes with the vigilante. You honor me, sir, but there's no need for thanks. I made a promise to myself a long time ago to become the kind of hero I always wanted to be, and I have. Helping people in trouble, defending the weak, and being someone who can help and change others' lives for the better through kindness, understanding and respect is why I wear this suit. One placed a hand on his chest. I can't give you my whole backstory, but my life has been filled with many dark clouds. They could have broken me. I could be an entirely different person today. He chuckled to himself as he remembered the hard times in his past. Realistically, I probably shouldn't be the person I am. But I made it through those dark clouds. I made my life change when I put on this suit, and now it feels sunny. I'm only here to help, sir, and it's all I ever wanted to do, he said with gentle sincerity. Yamato was beyond impressed. The country's infamous vigilante was more than he originally thought. He's definitely kept up with the constant exploits of the vigilante, and it was an undeniable fact that he has saved millions. Many debate whether he's more powerful or greater than All Might, but he doesn't entertain those. He's fully aware of the fact that the symbol of peace has something going on with him. His number of cases and activity have been decreasing significantly over the past 6 years. He is still the most popular hero with the highest approval ratings, which is why no one has really noticed it. And recently, every time the world's greatest hero is needed to save the day, he fails in case of the blue villain, or isn't around for whatever reason. He suspected the symbol of peace might not have much time left as a hero. Still, if that was the case, he was more than glad someone like one was not only able, but willing to wear those shoes, as unconventional as his situation may be. He smiled at the hero upon fully taking in his words. You have a lot of heart, One. I admire your sense of justice. Thank you. One responded with a smile. The Prime Minister reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 white laminated cards. Here, I'm sure these will interest you, he said as he handed him the card. One quickly scanned the cards and saw that there were no electronics in them whatsoever, so they seemed safe. He took one of the cards in his right hand and his eyes widened in shock as he looked at the card. It had a small photo of him on the right side and his hero name in the middle. The date it was issued was on it, and the city he operated out of, that being New Zutafu, and an identification number, as well as the seal of the Public Safety Commission. He read the top of the card that read Independent Hero License. Independent Hero License? He asked in confusion, looking at the older man. Yamato smiled, amused by his surprise. That's right. Japan's hero laws and regulations are so dated it's not even funny. I was able to find a loophole in the rules that governed the original heroes that was basically an ultimatum. Which was? One asked curiously. Follow the rules we've established, or you can do hero work without our services, systems, and the use of your quirk, he answered casually as his dark blue eyes seemed to pierce through the hero's lenses. What? So you're saying this license allows me to do everything I've been doing, I just can't use my quirk? He asked with fake discontentment. Correct. He answered casually. That's not going to be a problem for you, will it? Of course not. What kind of hero is limited to just their quirk? He said nonchalantly. I was hoping you'd say that. You're the first to receive this license one. It's been in the regulations from the beginning, but no one's ever desired to obtain one. While this will make your hero operations legal, it's not exactly the same as being a pro. For example, you won't receive any compensation by the government for your work, nor will you be allowed access to the hero network. You won't be entitled to the benefits or any programs that come with being a hero. You'll truly be going at it alone. He locked eyes with him as he explained. One took in the man's words. He couldn't contain his excitement. He was legal. He could dodge so much drama with the pros now. He didn't care one bit about the downsides of being independent. He had built a good system for himself thanks to Taku's help, and he would only continue to do what he's always done, just with a few more steps. He locked eyes with the Prime Minister and bowed his head. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. I truly appreciate this. He said with sincerity. You're very welcome one. If it's not obvious, this license doesn't go beyond Japan's borders. On the flip side, you can make the hero rankings and keep your identity secret if you choose. Really? Won't the public hound for my real name? Meh, yes and no, I guess. I mean, All Might and Edge Shot have their real names blank on their licenses. Hell, pretty much any hero can have their real names a secret, only accessible on the hero registry. By the way, you'll be on there by tomorrow. Okay. Thank you again, sir. This really was interesting, he said with a smile. He then looked that he had two. I have an idea why. But why did you give me two? He asked, holding them up. Because I'm almost positive that a hero, most likely Endeavor or Death Arms, is not gonna believe it's genuine and destroy one when you show it to them. Reasonable foresight. The older man nodded. I really like the hero you are, so keep doing what you're doing. He began to walk away before stopping about 10 paces from the vigilante. Oh, and one more thing? He began before to the hero's shock he disappeared before his eyes. Once eyes narrowed as he recognized the technique. Tell Michiko and Keizo I said hello, and to not be strangers. Came the voice of Yamato from behind him. One turned his head slightly, not fully turning to see the man behind him. The Nukiashi. The hero said in a low voice. Correction, that was the perfect Nukiashi. I admit you're good, you didn't sense me until you felt my eyes on you. The brunette said in a humbling tone. One turned and faced the older man and narrowed his eyes behind his mask. Who are you really? Prime Minister Yamato. The man smiled and closed his eyes. Just a guy who dabbled in martial arts once upon a time. Though I was better at using my head, that didn't mean I didn't learn my lessons well. He began to walk past the hero. I may not know who you are under that cowl, but those who know Tobihara's form will see the connection. But I'm sure you already know that. He raised and waved. Good night, one. I expect great things from you, he said in a cool, assuring voice. One watched him leave until he was out of sight. He then looked at his new licenses, excitement bubbling within him. Taku and Momo were going to be more shocked than he was when they saw this. His mom and dad would certainly be surprised but still supporting. He had to get home. Taku was hanging out with Eri and he had to review his chase with Tachibana-senpai. Several things about it seemed off to him, and he needed answers. Today had surely been full of surprises and he had to agree with Yamato that things were changing. So much so he found a legal loophole just to make it so he could be a legal part of it. He found a secluded spot, got out of costume and headed home. Eri would hug him when he walked through the door as always, and he couldn't wait to see the look on Taku's face when he saw his new license today. Was definitely an interesting day. And that's a wrap, my extraordinary time-traveling companions. Part 7 of our What If Deku Became Saitama journey has left us all breathless. I hope you enjoyed this captivating chapter as much as I did, filled with heart-pounding action and moments that tugged at our emotions. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our incredible community of adventure seekers. Remember, your support fuels our creative time-traveling endeavors. Share your thoughts and wild theories in the comments below. I can't wait to hear your take on this mind-bending universe. Until next time, my friends, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep being the heroes of your own stories. This is Chronos, signing off.